Roll call, please. Mr. Veeder?
Leyland?
Here.
Little?
Here.
Trelka?
Here.
White? Here. Schwartz?
Here. Please join us in a moment of silence to reflect on today's actions. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have the agenda received as proposed or as amended. I'll just note that item L related to the warming center no longer needs to be discussed on the agenda. We did reach an agreement with Hawkeye Community College to utilize the old Metro Center at 840 West 4th Street. We'll be opening at that location on Friday. So the public knows we are still open at our current location until that time. And I just want to thank all of my different coalition partners that have been involved in this effort to fill this important need. And I want to thank Hawkeye Community College for continuing to demonstrate what an asset they are to our entire community. And so with that, any other questions on the agenda? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. The agenda is approved. Next, we have public comments. Anyone wishing to speak to the board at this time on something that is not an agenda item? All right. Seeing none, we will move on to claims and payments.
Payments came out to $309,706.31. Bigger items, engineer's office, $25,897.53. We had health department, $10,000. IT, $26,776. And sheriff's at $149,823. Everything looked good.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Roll call, please, Mr. Veeder.
Leyland?
Yes.
Little?
Yes.
Trelka?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Schwartz?
Yes. Next, we will receive project updates from department heads and elected officials.
Morning, Kevin.
Morning.
Good morning, Board. Kathy Nicholas, County Engineer. Could you please turn on the screen, Rory? The roads are in very good condition this morning, and we expect them to stay that way for a few days. We might get it sounds like we may have a little bit of freezing rain in the next day or two, but a warming trend by this weekend, so that's certainly good for the roads. I was out on our Cedar River Bridge reconstruction project earlier this last week, actually last Friday. And I just want to spend a couple minutes showing you some photos to show you that we are making some progress out there. So this is a view from the east side of the river where I'm standing where the new abutment is being placed, and you'll see a photo of that in a minute. So out here in this portion of the river, you can see this is our Pier 5 that was completed several weeks ago. I think I showed you some photos then. And then out here further into the river is the Pier 4. This is the cofferdam being constructed so that that pier can be built. So on Friday, the PCI workers were placing the concrete for the east side abutment. So this would be the abutment, and this, of course, is the very east side of the bridge. The beams will sit on the bridge in a direction such as this, and then they will support the structure. This is looking at the abutment from the river side of the structure, so this would be the abutment. And then the beams, the ends of the beams would be sitting right here. And then moving on over into that cofferdam area, this is in the middle of the river now. This is where the new pier will be constructed. PCI was busy removing the sand, getting the sand to right below the river level. And this will take several days, and then once most of that material is removed, they will then pump out the water, and then they can start setting rebar and then pouring the concrete and then building the pier, the stem wall up out of the river, and then it will look much like the one I just showed you. So PCI is making good progress at this time of the year. By DOT specifications, we do not have to charge working days, and by our contract, we are not charging working days at this time. We will resume that April 1st. So we are still sitting at about 50% of the time used, and currently we have paid them for approximately 8 or 9% of the work. So can I answer any questions at this time? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Anyone else today? All right, we'll move on to minutes approved from the January 21st meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Minutes are approved. Next, we do have 2 hearings today. We will get to those later on in the agenda. The first is a 9:05 hearing on the proposed vacation of McStay Road, and the second is a 9:07 proposed FY20 budget amendment. Next, we have the consent agenda. This will be approved as a single resolution.
So moved.
Second?
Is there anything in the consent agenda anybody wishes to discuss? Roll call, please. Mr. Veeder.
Little,
Yes.
Trelka,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Schwartz.
Yes. Next, we're supposed to have an update from Ben Delagardelle regarding the Washburn sanitary sewer system, but I do not see Ben with us today, so we'll move on. Hopefully have that next week. Okay. Next, on to contracts and agreements. This is a resolution that the proposal received from Clapsdale Garber Associates, Cedar Falls, Iowa, for monument preservation and on-call surveying services for the calendar year 2020 at various locations in Blackhawk County, with a bid of $4,750 for monument preservation and surveying services at varying hourly rates and mileage detailed in the agreement. Be approved, and the chair to sign as recommended by Catherine Nichols, county engineer.
So moved.
So do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, so this comes out of our FY20 budget. We did budget $11,000 for this particular work item. We need to hire a surveyor since we no longer have a surveyor on staff here. When we are resurfacing our roadways, we disturb monuments, section corners, etc. Those are disturbed, so we need to reset those corners, and that is by Iowa code. So part of this fee goes to that work that's done after our road is resurfaced, and then we do have some miscellaneous survey work required throughout the year that this would be done on an hourly on-call basis. We did send out responses to, I believe, 6 or 7 surveyors. We received 4 responses back, with CGA or Clapsaddle Garber being the lowest bid. We are using them on the Grundy Road work, so we like their work, so I would recommend that you sign the contract with them.
Seconded.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? Roll call, please. Mr. Veeder.
Trelka,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Schwartz.
Yes. Okay, in other business, we have a resolution that the appointments to the Eminent Domain Compensation Commission in Blackhawk County in the categories listed beginning January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020 be submitted and approved and placed on file with the county auditor.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and second. Any questions or discussion?
No, I think Dana mentioned that we could still use another financial person on that eminent domain board, but that we have enough to make it legal, so we could proceed. So.
Okay, excellent. Any further questions or discussion? Roll call, please. Mr. Veeder.
White,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Trelka,
Yes.
Schwartz.
Yes. Next, we have a motion to direct the county auditor to advertise for a public hearing and bid opening to be held at 9:05 a.m. on February 25th, 2020 in boardroom 201 of the Blackhawk County Courthouse, 316 East 5th Street, Waterloo, Iowa, on the proposed project L-1704-7307 HMA resurfacing of Spring Creek Road and Indian Creek Road, sections 12, 13, and TWN 889, range 11W. So a motion and a second. Do we have any questions or discussion?
These next 2 items, we have completed the plans. We will be sending those out with your approval of this action today, and then we will open bids in 4 weeks for these next 2 projects. And they're both resurfacing here in Blackhawk County.
Thank you. All right, board, any questions or discussion? All right, this is a motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. The motion is passed. Next, we have a motion to direct the county auditor to advertise for a public hearing and bid opening to to be held at 9:07 a.m. on February 25th, 2020, in Boardroom 201 of the Blackhawk County Courthouse, 316 East Fifth Street, Waterloo, Iowa, on the proposed project L-206-73-07 HMA resurfacing of Pioneer Drive and Union Circle in the Turkey Foot Heights subdivision.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We will now move into our hearing. It is actually 9:12 a.m. This is a hearing on the vacation of McStay Road requested by William J. and Mary E. Dittmer, and Lee and Deborah Bader, and John and Kathleen Rudder, and George and Rita Schmitz.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
Publication.
All right, we have all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, motion passes.
Motion to close the hearing after all written comments are received and placed on file.
Second.
All right, Kathy?
Yeah, could I please have the screen back on, Rory?
I'm sorry, did we have any written comments, Grant?
No, sir.
Thank you.
So this action today comes about because of, we did vacate this road in 2018, in November of 2018. At that time, there was, or shortly after that time, there was an error discovered in the legal description, as well as the quitclaim deed was only deeded to one of these individuals, to one party, when it most likely should have been deeded to all four of the parties. As a result of this, in consultation with Mr. Pete Burke, he advised us that we should completely redo the public hearing. So that's what I'm doing today. So just a little bit of explanation of where McStay Road is. If you're not familiar, it's east of Evansdale, east of the Elk Run Heights area. It's directly McStay Road. This is Highway 20. So McStay Road runs north-south, and it did dead end with the Highway 20 construction a number of years ago. Young Road passes to the north, and these are the four property owners who are we are concerned with today. So in early 2018, these one landowner in particular, the individual who farms this portion of the four quarters, met with me and told me that they were tired of cleaning up the trash and the debris that was accumulating on McStay Road over the years. They would oftentimes in the spring, before they could begin farming, they would have to clean up garbage that was just dumped out on the roadway there. At that time, we had done very little to maintain it. You'll see pictures here. It's really nothing more than a grass road at that time. This would be the intersection of Young Road and McStay Road. This would be looking south, so Highway 20 would be down here right beyond these trees. This is how the road looked in the summer of 2018. You can see that over the years, there really hadn't been much maintenance done on behalf of the county. We had placed gravel very occasionally, but the four landowners, they had done most of the maintenance, and most of that maintenance just included mowing so that they could access their fields. And then this is the very south end of it, and this is Highway 20 just beyond the barricade. So when we vacate a road, that means that we are there by permanent easement. McStay Road was a permanent easement. When we vacate a road, according to the Code of Iowa, those four landowners who have the underlying title to that property, that does revert back to them. Because of that, those two owners on the south end or adjacent to Highway 20, then they were left with no access, and that's what they were concerned with when it was proposed that we do the vacation. They were concerned that they would no longer have access. In the fall of 2018, this board asked these landowners to come back. We would do the vacation if they had provided some legal description, some legal means of giving all property owners access from the former McStay Road. So they did go with an attorney, and they came back several months later with this legal description this legal instrument providing access to all 4 owners. At that time, you advised that it was proper to then proceed with the vacation. So at that time, in early November, we did send out letters to the adjoining property owners. According to the Code of Iowa, we did follow those procedures. On Tuesday, October 30th, you did vote to vacate McStay Road. However, as I mentioned, in that vacation, there was an error in the quitclaim deed. The actual legal description was not correct, as well as it was only deeded to one of the property owners, to the Baders, when in fact it probably should have been vacated to all 4 of the property owners. That's why we're here today, to correct those 2 mistakes. Can I answer any questions?
And you went ahead, Kathy, and sent out letters, just like you had
Yes.
previously. And you
So,
did that
yes.
again, too, so.
We did, after Tuesday's meeting 3 weeks ago, we then resent the letters out. I had spoken to the Baders. He was going to pass on to the 3 other landowners the same, what I had told him, that we needed to redo this due to an error in the description. But I assumed it would pass today, and they were more than welcome to come today. I don't believe any of those landowners are here today, however.
Thank
So
you.
everyone was re-notified according to the way we proceeded the first time.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any further comments before we close the hearing? All right, I know we have a motion. Can we get a second?
Second?
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. All right, the hearing is closed. Next is a resolution to consider any damages to property owners affected by vacating and conveying to the above-named individuals the county-owned property described above.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Veeder.
Leyland,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Trelka,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes. Next, we have a resolution that the Board of Supervisors vacate and convey to the above-named individuals the county-owned property described above.
So moved.
Second.
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Veeder.
Little,
Yes.
Trelka, White,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes. Next, we have a resolution to direct the chair to sign the final order of vacation, vacating and conveying the above-named individuals the county-owned property described above.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? All right, roll call, please, Mr. Veeder.
Trelka,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes. Next is a resolution that the chair to be directed to sign the quit-claim deeds to the adjoining property owners of the above-named individuals for the parcel legally described above. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions? Roll call, please, Mr. Veeder.
White,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Trelka,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes. All right, it is approximately 9:19 a.m. We now have a hearing on the proposed fiscal year 20 budget amendment.
Motion to receive and place on file proof of publication.
Second?
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes.
Motion to close the hearing after all written comments are received and placed on file.
Second?
All right, any written comments, Mr. Veeder?
no, sir.
All right, any further discussion?
Do you have any questions? Otherwise, I'd be happy to kind of go over a recap of what we're doing.
Yeah, I think.
I think that'd be
yeah,
good for the public.
Please.
So we have conservation, maintenance, and health department just transferring funds from FY19 to FY20. And then for secondary roads, we are increasing their expenses in their rock line item by $300,000, and then their fuel by $50,000. And then the only other change as far as this budget amendment goes are changes for the bond that we closed just recently in the fall here. What that does is that allows us to make an expense to.
I'm sorry, could someone just partially close the door here? I don't know what is going on out
They're
there.
all in
But-
carpet.
Okay.
Doing her job.
Sorry. So there is expenses that we need to make as far as paying for the bond fees to disperse funds to solid waste. We also need to collect funds at the end of the fiscal year to pay principal and interest for these bonds. So those are the changes that we're making for the actual bonds. And like I said, secondary roads has the increase in their expense line items. Maintenance, conservation, and health department are transferring funds from FY19 to FY20.
It's the last budget amendment you plan on before the fiscal year.
No, we'll do one in May, especially with solar.
Yeah, we typically do the May and fall, or spring and fall, so this was just,
Yep.
this was one we didn't get in. I think we were thinking about
Correct.
doing it last year.
October
We
and
didn't
May.
get it in.
Yep. So we'll do one again in May, and then that'll allow us to pay for the solar as well as any other last minute changes to the budget. So
Yeah, do we have any other questions or discussion?
The only thing I want to say is obviously I've kind of been against the engineer's increase. More disappointed than anything. I have a problem 6.5 months into a fiscal year budget increasing at what, 350,000, James?
correct.
I know the reasons that were given, but still, when we certified that budget last March, we voted on that budget, and here we are increasing it just 6.5 months into the fiscal year. So I think there could have been some monies moved within the budget to stay within our certified budget, but
Well, we are staying within the certified budget,
I-
but we're allowed to do amendments. And
I
we do
know we're
amendments.
allowed to do amendments, but we're increasing it by 350, what you originally approved.
I agree, but we also had the worst winter on record last year. We said for 25 years. We had roads in terrible conditions. We had people contacting
Granted, I
us
know
all
that,
the
but you're only
time.
6.5 months in on the current budget, and I've lived in Iowa my whole life, so I know what winter it was, and we've
Yeah.
had worse winters before, and we'll probably have worse coming up.
Well, we had
But
the roads
still,
tell us it was
we're
25
6.5
years.
months into our budget, and
So what would you have us do? Not use the budget and then tell?
well,
people
the
how to spend
rocking,
them on
in all honesty, should have probably been backed off a little bit if you're going to go over budget. You don't keep spending it if you don't have the money, and it kept going. I would have rather there'd be no amendment in the engineers until it came into May to see how she was going to end up on her fiscal year budget. Because you're still, that's where you want to get it at that time, so
Well, we're at 80% of the rock budget.
I
We are
understand where we're at.
50%
I know all that,
fuel.
you're not telling me anything.
Well, I know, but you don't seem to be getting the point that we'll be, in March and April, we'll be needing to do roads. Are we
My,
just gonna
my
say we're
point
sorry?
is, you stay within your budget.
We are staying within budget. We're just moving funds around. No different than we've done, Tom, for other budgets.
Yes, it is. We've
No,
moved
it's
funds
not.
within the department. The reason this is a little different because it's road use money that we're moving, but you're still increasing our budget 350,000, no matter how you look at
And
it.
we've done the same for medical examiner, for JCS.
We have, but we transferred
for
money
me.
internally in from, say, the sheriff's department
Sometimes.
one year.
Yeah, sometimes we've
50,000
done the
and so forth,
appropriations,
so.
you're right, but sometimes we've had.
Anyway, when I vote on that certified budget in March, that's what I vote on, so. Anyway, we're gonna see another one in May, and I suppose you'll have another increase in May.
Well, if the roads are as bad as they were.
But I don't need
would
to
know.
hear this on the roads, because we budget, there was no snow for the month of November, December. And so there was no fuel used on those 15 plows. And we budget for the whole winter, we just don't budget for when it snows. So I would think she'd be ahead of the game, because fuel was one of the costs that was cited on there. But again, that's my opinion, you got your opinion.
Yeah,
and
but
it disappoints
Kathy, would
me.
you address this a little bit from your department
We're
standpoint?
primarily doing this, yeah, I agree with you, Tom. We're not going to spend money until, most likely until March, April, or May. You know, right now, we're not placing rock. We're plowing snow, so we are using diesel. We just didn't want to have spent $1 million, which we're afraid that we might before we get to the May amendment. We don't want to be overspent. I'm hopeful that we're not overspent, but rather than telling our residents, no, we can't place any more rock in the middle of March when the roads are soggy, we don't have any more money to place rock. We just thought this was a prudent way to go rather than to come before you in May and say, hey, we've overspent the budget, or we can't put any rock down because we haven't budgeted. This seemed like a safer bet for
You're not gonna be
everyone.
putting any rock down in March anyway.
Well,
Not with
no, we
snow
don't
on
know.
the ground.
I don't know that. We don't.
But I
know
will
what-
tell you one thing, I still agree, and a lot of the residents that I've talked to agree too, the rock that went on in October is probably plowed off already into the ditch today.
So we didn't start plowing on any gravel roads until January.
I know we didn't.
So we felt
So we
that
saved
that
on
was.
fuel November and December on plowing of 15 plows.
We also felt that the rock was pretty well seeded by
Okay.
going through November and December.
I guess I'd rather have seen it in the May amendment
Well,
at that point.
yeah, I
And
hear
Ben
what you're
kept-
saying,
And
Tom.
Ben kept alert along like she has done,
But I think the point of the amendment was to make sure we don't go over.
Right.
And we have.
understand that.
plans
That's
in
why we
place.
have one in May, and that's the time you correct the sheets on there. So it's my opinion.
Right. Well, I do appreciate that we were in a position to increase the amount of rock through hauling, because I think the public made it clear that after this terrible winter that they were not happy with the conditions of the roads.
Right, and unfortunately, that is all we have the capability of. Placing rock on the gravel road system is really all we can do, especially in the heat of the battle, so to speak. That's really our only defense, is to place rock. We can do these stabilization projects like we're proposing to do. We can subdrain. All those things cost, they take time and they cost a lot of money, and they can't be done in the middle of a spring thaw. And some days, as we all know, nothing can be done in the middle of the spring thaw, and that's where you get upset people. And we would like to be reactive enough or proactive enough to get rock out there as soon as we can in the spring, and not have to say, hey, we don't have any more money until July 1st.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Kathy. Quite honestly, we had people, and you were not only calls we got, people that couldn't get out on their
Yeah,
own.
but we had plenty of people, and I could also have them call you if you choose, that were upset where she was laying the rock at.
Well, sure, everybody.
The way the process was being done, they weren't happy with that either, you know, the way it,
Well, it's
it
hard.
cost more money doing it the way that we were doing it.
But we had people that couldn't get garbage picked up.
But
We
when
had
they sit there,
roads.
when they sit there and videotape our crew all day and see what's going on,
Well, there's a problem.
they're not happy with that. They're
No.
happy with getting the rock, not the way the process is.
And some of those are individuals that are probably unhappy because it's not placed in front of theirs at the time they'd like to see it done. We had several residents that were calling to say they couldn't get garbage pickup, they couldn't even drive
I
down their own
understand that.
streets.
I understand that.
Well, I know, but I'd hate to be one of
Kathy,
those,
how
as you
how
would.
many
Yes.
miles of gravel road do we got in comparison to Chickasaw? Do you know by any chance?
So,
Anywhere close?
if I remembered that county in particular, because I did just hear that statistic just recently, we have approximately 510 miles of gravel roads in Blackhawk County. Understand we have a pretty large urban center here.
Right.
Chickasaw, I believe, has upwards in the 700s, and their rock budget
It's 2 million
is,
right now.
yes, it was like 1.7 or 1.8 million dollars,
Yeah.
right? And that's very common for those larger, or those counties with more miles of rock.
All right, thank you.
All right, do we have any further discussion or questions? I believe we have a motion and a second, right?
No, we don't.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor to close the hearing?
Aye.
I,
Oh, I'm sorry.
We already had that.
I'm sorry, I thought we were on the resolution.
No, no.
Now we got it twice.
Yeah. All right, aye. Well, I don't think we didn't vote on closing the hearing yet, but
just,
so,
It just did.
yes, yeah, just now we did. But, all right. Next is a resolution on the fiscal year 20 budget amendment by changing previous revenues and expenditures on file with the county auditor.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion or questions? Roll call, please, Mr. Veeder.
Leyland,
Yes.
Little,
no.
Trelka,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Schwartz.
Yes. All right. Item K is a resolution that the county auditor be directed to increase and decrease appropriations to various operating budgets for the fiscal year 19 and 20 for offices as submitted and as shown upon the records in the office of the county
Second.
finance director, with such changes being made in accordance with 331.434.6 of the Iowa Code. We have a motion, a second. Any questions or discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Veeder.
Trelka, Little,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Schwartz.
Yes. All right, next we'll move on to item 11, discussion and possible board action, consideration of all aspects of the fiscal year 21 Blackhawk County budget.
All right. Perfect. We're going to kick it off. We have 5 asking presentations today. We are going to kick it off with Iowa Legal Aid, and then we'll go to the Greater Cedar Valley Food Bank, Riverview, and then we'll end it with Junior Achievement before we get into our department presentations. So without further ado, I'll let you kick it off.
Thank you. Good morning. Michelle Jungers, Managing Attorney of the Waterloo Office of Legal Aid, and I'm here with Nick Smithberg, the Executive Director of Legal Aid. Came here this morning from Des Moines.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So as the board is aware, our office has traditionally gotten funding to support our the work we do getting public benefits for Blackhawk County residents. And traditionally, that's typically Social Security disability and supplemental security income that allows us to represent those individuals, many times getting a back benefit to them of a pretty substantial amount and allowing them to have a payment going forward that allows them to have that financial stability. This morning, I'm here to ask for an increase in the funding that we're getting. I think I've talked for the past few years about just generally the work that we do and the financial impact that the general work that we do has on the residents of Blackhawk County. So in addition to doing the traditional work that we've been doing funded by the county funding for almost 30 years, we would ask for an increase in those dollars so that we can expand the work that we're doing. Over the past 5 years, the legal work that we've done outside of just that Social Security work has we've seen financial benefits of almost $4 million to residents of just Blackhawk County, and $1 million in back benefits for those ongoing cases that I've talked about, those Social Security SSDI cases. We believe that expanding the services that we currently offer to Blackhawk County residents is going to result in increased financial stability. So some of the other work that we do includes housing work, evictions. The warming center is great. I'd love to see us not need a warming center. For those of you who are unaware, Waterloo has the highest rates of evictions in the entire state of Iowa. That's work that we can do, but with an increase in funding, our hope would be that we can do more targeted outreach to prevent some of those issues in the first place and increase their stability in that way. We also, we help with a variety of issues that impact their ability to be financially stable and keep a job, including making sure that they continue their child care assistance if that's an issue, getting or maintaining their food stamps, getting their license back so they can actually drive to work and they're not continuing to get charged with driving while barred. Expungements, we've started doing a lot more expungements, and as you know, that definitely impacts an individual's ability to get a job. I'd also like to see our office, with this increase in funding, provide more legal assistance to veterans. Over the last 5 years, we've helped almost 300 veteran households with civil legal issues, but just in the last year, we've had 70 requests from veteran households to help with civil legal issues just in Blackhawk County. Our office gets a lot more requests for help than we're able to provide. Currently, we have 4 attorneys, which is great. The majority of our cases come from Blackhawk County, even though we represent an 8-county area. And I'd like to see now, us being able to really increase our outreach to that population and the work that we do increase, which would increase their, financial stability. And then Nick's going to talk a little bit about some work that we're doing with the Waterloo schools.
So, yeah, the one aspect of the expansion that Michelle was talking about is that we're going to be opening a legal aid clinic inside a elementary school, public elementary school, where we can help school families with the types of issues that Michelle was talking about in terms of housing instability, domestic violence issues, income instability, all of which we've found have a very high correlation with academic outcomes. So this is an exciting chance to partner with the schools to do the work that we do in a way that delivers results for kids and families in schools, This is an extension of a pilot that we launched in Des Moines earlier this year. And while it's too early to talk about a lot of hard numbers, the feedback I'm getting from the principals that we work with is that they're seeing results from the kids even in the first year of the program. It doesn't take too long for me to sell this to an educator because they all know that the kids come into school with the whole world coming with them, and all the issues that they're facing in their families have an impact on their ability to learn. To be clear, our clients in this model are the grown-ups, not the kids. This isn't a Lawyers for Kids type project. Nothing wrong with that. But this is much more of like a collaboration with the schools. And what we found is that the social workers and other school personnel are an outstanding source of referrals for us when we do this work. And one advantage that we found is that we tend to get the cases earlier in the process because the kids are kind of like a red flag. If there's something going on with the kids at school, there's a pretty good chance there's something going on at home. So anyway, we were just approved by the school board a couple of weeks ago. They haven't told us which school we're going to be in, but this project, I think, is an exciting way that I can work to grow our office and our work here in Black Hawk County and deliver a tangible result for the community.
Are you receiving funding from the school?
I haven't asked yet. I am receiving funding from some other sources, some private grants, and we'll also be supporting it out of our larger organization, so I'm committed to growing it.
How about the other counties? You say you represent 8 counties. You receiving any funding from any of the counties?
Not currently.
Not currently.
Not currently. Any other entity in the local area?
Any other?
Government entity in our local area?
Last year, we received some City of Waterloo funding, but apparently because of the HUD lag, we haven't actually received it yet, but that was targeted to working on substandard housing in Waterloo.
How much was that, you know?
$20,000.
And we are, as I said, pursuing funding from several private sources. I've already got a starting grant of $25,000 from one of the area foundations and a pretty good read on some additional funding. So certainly we would be funding this also from other sources.
So the total funding, is that the 60,000 or that is not? So the total you're seeking from all types of institutions, total is 60?
That's our ask of the.
That's your ask of the county, but what's the total?
No, I expect that we will be looking for additional funding from third parties to truly get it operational. I mean, this would be a commitment on our part to put, permanent staff inside one of these schools to run the clinic. Right now in Des Moines, we have a clinic that runs 3 days a week, and it's staffed by a couple of attorneys and a social work person. So I think that ultimately I'd like to grow it to that scale.
So the 60,000 for the most part is staffing.
Yeah. Oh, it's
100%.
it's all staff. we don't. The overhead is minimal, and certainly with the school project, we bring our own computers and phones, and we don't ask them. Well, the only thing we ask the schools is a room.
So this request really is from that standpoint, just for that program, not so much for, you talked about expanding the work and with veterans and with others in the community too, but the 60,000 here is for that expansion of that program in the schools for the most part?
No, it would be a combination. In other words, a portion of this would go towards helping us to build the school project, which we'll cobble together with other sources.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate you bringing this model to Waterloo. It's an exciting way of treating the whole child, and so I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
All right, next we'll have Greater Cedar Valley.
For the screen, so I just plug in my jump drive down here.
You should be able to,
Does
yes.
that work?
While Aaron's doing that, let's do a quick introduction, if you don't mind. My name's Lisa Skubal. I'm Vice President of Economic Development for Gross Cedar Valley. Today I'm here with Aaron Jarnigan. He is our digital and social media marketing specialist. I'm also here with Carrie Dara, our CEO. She's hidden back here. I think most of you saw her coming in. And then also one of our Gross Cedar Valley's executive committee members, Tim Hurley, is also joining us as well. So good morning, and thank you for giving us an opportunity to present to you this morning. The war for workforce in is a North America issue. It's not exclusive to Black Hawk County or the state of Iowa. There will be winners and losers, and there's going to be no one in between. We have to decide as a community or as a county which one we want to be, on the winning end or the losing end. And by the way, businesses all across the country, including those in Black Hawk County, are facing the same decision. This is important because, as some of you already know, at least 90% of our economic growth comes from our existing businesses. 48% of our existing businesses we surveyed have expressed that the availability of workforce was a limiting factor in the growth in Black Hawk County. The state just released a similar survey statewide this month, stating that 49.1% share that same concern with Black Hawk County businesses. What this data does is it just suggests that we are lockstep with our counterparts on average in the state of Iowa. 20% of those existing businesses we interviewed have already said that they have contracted out or relocated business functions out of the Cedar Valley due to the lack of workforce, and these are skilled positions. If that trend continues, our local economy becomes susceptible to being stagnant, and that affects all aspects of public and private sector in our economy. Aaron Jarnigan, who I just introduced you to, he leads our digital and social media initiatives to support our existing businesses with recruiting, onboarding, retention of our workforce. He will discuss where we've been and where we need to be to compete in the talent war, which is described nationally, it's not my words or our words, as a new economic development currency. So I'll turn it over to Aaron.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And just to start off, I just want to thank you guys just having the opportunity to present. I'm really excited about some of the things that are going on and some of the opportunities that you guys may be able to help us with if we partner moving forward. So really, I'm just going to jump right into it. I also kind of joke whenever I speak that, first of all, I'm not a professional public speaker, and with the digital marketing, I'm kind of a nerd. So the next few minutes, you might be in for a little something since I do kind of have some of those nerdy qualities. But so just starting off, 48%, just like Lisa mentioned, of Cedar Valley employers feel that workforce is a limiting factor to growth. So then that begs the question, because ultimately it's a conversation of population growth. We just need more people here. So what do people look for when they're looking to move to a location? We'll do a survey. The Professional Developers of Iowa did a survey to find out just that, and it starts with job opportunities. That's the number one selling point. Low housing costs, low crime rate, natural landscapes, and recreational opportunities. So we know that we have all these great things. Governor Kim Reynolds touts the 80,000 jobs that are open, which there's a challenge there because we don't have that many unemployed people in Iowa. So since we have those things, where's the issue? We have these great amenities and we have these great jobs, so why can't we bring more people here? Well, it's the perception of Iowa. So in that same survey, this was people outside of Iowa, they asked them, when you look at Iowa, what do you see? And they're like, well, we'll tell you. We don't see job opportunities, so we don't have a job during the day, and we also don't see that we can do anything at night after our non-existent job. So there's a barrier there, which then leads it, because we have the low housing costs, the low crime rate, and natural landscapes, and people recognize that, but that job opportunities is that key point. That's that number one selling motivator for somebody to move to a new location. But then they also want the recreational opportunities for family and others, so that when people visit, they're not just sitting at home. So then that kind of leads into the talent attraction and retention conversation. Challenging some of those perceptions in unique ways to kind of stand out above the noise. Because with unemployment being low, people are getting hit by messages all the time about joining positions here or moving here. So we need to stand out above that noise, and this is where we think you guys can really help us kind of do that well. So how does it work? How have we been able to do that, and what's led to some of the success that we've been able to see? Well, we started Live the Valley, and I apologize, I'm not sure why this stuff kind of split up and we might have different versions of PowerPoint, but we started Live the Valley, which is a brand that we initiated to kind of be a tool to help attract talent here, and it kind of serves two purposes. This first one, and it's a quote from Eric Skogard, who's the president of CEO of Lincoln Savings Bank, and he says it well. It's to help recruiters recruit. So when they're promoting their great jobs with great benefits, challenging that job opportunities perception that we have, we also can sell the recreational activities and the community activities that we have as well, kind of so that recruiters can push forward that full package of what the Cedar Valley and Black Hawk County can offer to somebody looking to move here. And then secondly, it serves to stand on its own 2 feet. So really, we want to be able to kind of help brand awareness for our community just because we're excited about the great things, And I'll just tell you, when I come from small town Iowa, went to UNI, studied digital marketing, and just assumed that I was going to either have to go to Des Moines or go somewhere else because that's where I just perceived the opportunities to be. So I'm thankful for the internship at Gross Cedar Valley and now working there, just because I was able to then see the opportunities that are here and see the development and all the people who are passionate about moving things forward here, that kind of inspired me. So it's really fun to be working on this and kind of promoting it. And Brown saw that as well. So this is a family from Shenandoah, Iowa. Mark, he was working for Browns, and they were looking to get a little bit closer to Wisconsin because that's where family was. And so they actually found our website, and through the content on there decided, this was a place that we wanted to be. They have the biking, which their family identified with. They had the recreational activities, something they truly got excited about. So they actually then led to their decision to build and develop that store in Cedar Falls, which if you haven't been to Browns, it's a great store, recommend it. Super comfy shoes. But so why Cedar Valley? Why would we not want a city promoting a city? Why do we make it bigger? It's because when you look at regionalism, you're able to capture all the benefits that fall within your borders. So if you're a city, you really can find what's in that city limits, and then you end up competing against the smaller cities next to you. But when you work as a region, the Cedar Valley region has about 250,000 people. I mean, we're fighting for more people with more people, because what ends up happening is when we're promoting some of these things, the community members really become our ambassadors and really make a lot of those closing sales for businesses and community members to come here. And so that's why we chose the Cedar Valley, because if somebody wants to live in a rural community but work downtown, they have that option, or vice versa. It allows them to choose their lifestyle and not us to just push working in one city and living in one city and only participating in the activities offered in one city. So kind of how does it work? So one, we do social media because that's the way that we can reach the most people for the fewest amount of dollars. So promoting exciting content is kind of the tagline for this one. This was a Facebook post. This was fun. This is where the nerdy part comes out, because I get to sit on the back end of the website and see all the people coming in and looking at the website, engaging with the content. This one post on Facebook talking about the theme park that's coming to town reached almost 16,000 people and brought almost 10,000 people to the website. I thought our website was going to explode. I didn't think it could handle that many people looking at it at one time. So that was a lot of fun. And when you do content like this, it's really crucial to get engagement. So you see the 760 shares and a lot of reactions, because if we're pushing out the things that we have to offer and our community isn't engaging with it, then it falls flat. It's not like it's real. So we're key on that. Revealing opportunities. We have a job board on there that's fed by our organization's job board and our partner's job board. Just as we're running to kind of that perception too. We do have great opportunities here and hundreds of them. So just truly showing them that. And this is where that job board leads comes from. That was identified in that application. People can sign up to learn more about jobs that are here. And it's really exciting. We've had hundreds of those and have led to great jobs. And then last, engaging educational tools. So we want to talk about what we have to offer here in a fun and engaging way. So like one thing we've developed is the cost of living calculator. We've also done virtual reality, because one thing that was identified in that survey was that traveling opens the door for relocation. That job opportunity maintains that number one thing that leads to the sale. So we wanted to give people the opportunity to experience the Cedar Valley even if they weren't in the Cedar Valley. So this actually was piloted in Denver. And what we did is we went to downtown Waterloo, downtown Cedar Falls, Single Speed, and Lost Island to just let people appreciate and truly engage with what's going on there. They put the goggles on and they can look up at the State Street buildings and look up at the new apartments in downtown Waterloo. This was awesome. I had so much fun with this, and you can just see the reaction on his face that this is a truly kind of set apart experience for them, especially when you're talking about community attraction. A lot of it is just advertisements and things like that, but when you can build that engagement, it's truly a lot of fun. So this is kind of where we lead into where you guys can be helpful with us. We're looking to try some new initiatives and some new things. One avenue is called influencer marketing. It's people who already have a large following on their own. In Iowa Chill, this is a social media account geared towards younger people, so those young professionals that we're really trying to hit. They promote content. A lot of it tends to be comical, but and so you can see here, this is actually a video that Catch Des Moines did. They're already starting to partner and do this, and we want to be on step and above Des Moines. So they also went to that meetup in Denver, and were not upset with us, but a little bit, because they didn't feel that they were well represented at that meetup because they didn't have the virtual reality stuff. So we're going to keep pushing that forward, that we're better than Des Moines. And they're doing a lot of advertising, but we want to really create content that's engaging and true to ourselves and true to the platform that's being put on. So this is one of the videos that is in the application. Also, Iowa is doing their own branding campaign. So we think this is a perfect time to really double down on some of this stuff, because if Iowa's pushing their brand forward, we now have a great catapulting system to push then our brand and our location forward in Iowa. And then also, so this is our reach so far. About 1.5 million people have been reached with our messaging since August of 2018 when this started, about 1.3 million people in our last year. And we want to double that for this year. So looking to hit another 1.5 million people this year just on our own. And this is outside of the work that companies are doing when we're providing resources to them. So really this is where we guys feel that we can have a great partnership and truly driving this point home that we have a great place to live. We have great opportunities. We really think this partnership would be effective. So I can talk about this stuff all day. Like I said, I'm a nerd about it. I really enjoy it. So if you guys would want to meet and discuss it, I'd be more than happy to. But thank you guys so much for your time. I truly appreciate it. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah, if you guys have any questions, by all means.
Any questions for Aaron?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the food bank.
What was their request? Cedar Valley?
29.
29.
Good morning. I'm Barb Prather. I'm the director
Morning.
of the Northeast
Morning.
Iowa Food Bank, and thank you for the past support you've given the food bank. Thank you to Craig for serving on our board for a number of years, and you, Chris, for your current service to the food bank. Our mission is to provide food and grocery products to nonprofit organizations and individuals in Northeast Iowa while offering hunger education to the community and those in need. The county has been a strong partner of the food bank since we began in 1981, helping to fund the food pantry, and that's what our request is for, again, this year, as well as helping the Salvation Army food programs provide food to their clients that they serve as well. We can't do what we do without community support, and for the 13% of Black Hawk County residents that are food insecure, and of those 17% are kids, when families come into the food pantry, we want to make sure that they have access to food. The food comes from a variety of sources in the community. It's stuff from Walmart, it's stuff from Target. We have a regular volunteer schedule that goes out and picks up, as well as staff helps with that as well. But then we have community volunteers that help us on a regular basis. So your funding this year, again, would help support the food pantry that provides right now on average 3,000 households in Black Hawk County with product. And a lot of more of our product is nutritious. 68% of what we distribute through the food bank and through the food pantry is either perishable produce or protein type items, which is up considerably from when we first started, when it was traditionally non-perishable. So anything that you guys can do to help us continue with our mission and help provide food to people who are in need in Black Hawk County, we would appreciate it. Today, though, I want to finish with a story of impact. And some of you may have heard this story, and it's not necessarily about the most nutritious food we distribute, but it's still about food and how it can help bring families together. Working in a charitable food distribution organization, we hear about many Northeast Iowans who are nervous about coming into a pantry for the first time to ask for assistance. They don't want to be there. And it's not a stretch of the imagination to understand why. We've all been there, and asking for help isn't something that naturally comes and is inherent to everyone. We want to do it ourselves. In fact, we found that on an average, pantry clients who use our food assistance program, the Cedar Valley Food Pantry, come in 7 times out of and even though they're eligible to come 12 times. What that tells us, by and large, is that people who don't need to use a pantry won't use a pantry. But when people do need the extra assistance, we're glad to be there to help them. Recently, a young mother came into her pantry. She had hit a rough patch financially and wanted to make sure her kids were not going to go without food. During her registration process, she mentioned not having a lot of money for food or extras, which isn't uncommon. After all, that's why people visit a food pantry. After getting the paperwork completed, pantry staffers showed the young mother around and gave her a few tips on using it. They too were mothers and knew how to help her find what she needed. Moments later, one of the pantry staff members realized that this young mother had mentioned her child's birthday was coming the very next day. It was in this moment when the staff realized that they could do something truly special for this family. They sifted through a few boxes of food that would soon stock the shelves, and they came across a small, simply decorated cake that was clearly ready for the kiddo's birthday. Attempting to go unnoticed, the staff tried to slip the cake into the client's cart as a sweet surprise. But they weren't as clever as they thought, because she turned around and immediately caught on to what was happening. And the look on her face was one of those moments that a person lives for. I didn't think I was going to be able to make this happen. That is, providing a birthday cake for her daughter. In that moment, she was no longer a client, and the staff member wasn't just operating the pantry. Together, they were two mothers with tears in their eyes, both recognizing the beauty in a practical act of kindness, and that on this day, one mother's wish came true. And she didn't even have to blow out any candles. That's the impact of the food bank and the food pantry. We put smiles on the face of people when they are in their time of need. I thank you for the support you've given the food bank and ask you to consider supporting it again, as well as the programs we serve at the Salvation Army. Thank you.
And I want to congratulate you on your remarkable transition over the last number of years of providing even fresher and healthier foods. I think that's a truly remarkable thing, because everybody has a right to have access to healthy and nutritious foods, and you're a big part of that.
Well,
the biggest part of that in this community. So,
well, thank you. For a lot of people in the community, if they have $10 to spend on food, they're not going to buy the most nutritious. And I'm really proud of the last few years when we've been able to step up and provide that type of product, especially dairy and especially fresh produce and even protein, because it's the most expensive things for our clients to buy. So anything we can do to help our clients and the families and the member agencies that we have get that product, we're happy to do. So thank you for that.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Riverview.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I am Gwen Bramlett Hecker. It's good to see all of you again. I am the program director for Riverview Center, and this is Ethan Brown. He is a sexual assault advocate as well as our UNI campus coordinator, fairly recently joining that position. So he's here to help if we have any questions for him. Saturday, I spent a good chunk of the day with my daughter, who is 20 and is a student at UNI. It's wonderful to have your child go to school in the same community in which you live, because I get to see her often. But after we spent a good chunk of the day together, we separated. She went to her apartment. I went to our home. And about an hour after I got there, she forwarded me a text that she had gotten from the university that there had been a rape in the dorm the night before. And I get those texts a little too often. And at the first moment, of course, I'm incredibly sad and anxious for the survivor. I, as a parent, automatically feel a sense of heartache for parents who are likely far away and may not even know what has occurred. And then I automatically shift into problem-solving mode and think, okay, how am I going to get my organization connected with this person who needs the support that we can provide? According to the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, 25% of college women and 7% of college men are victims of forced sexual contact while in college. 18 to 24-year-old women in college are 3 times as likely to experience sexual assault versus any other times in their lives. More than 90% of sexual assault survivors on campuses do not report their assaults. And nearly 40% of those who experience assault on a college campus experience a disruption in their education, meaning they drop out of school. The assault then has a ripple effect, impacting not only the survivor, their friends and their family, but also college attrition and matriculation rates. And that is why we are here today. Riverview Center, as many of you know, provides crisis and long-term support services for survivors of sexual violence across the age spectrum, across the sexual identity and orientation spectrum. But we know that our college community, University of Northern Iowa college community, that is near and dear to all of us and provides this community with such an incredible resource, is a place that needs special attention with regards to support services for those who experience sexual violence. A big part of what our coordinator position does and will continue to do, should you be able to provide us with assistance, is to serve as a conduit for that student to all the support services that are available to them, both on the campus, including the Title IX system, as well as all the other support services, but also a conduit to the support services that also exist outside the university campus. For example, this year there's been a change in policy at the university that through their wonderful counseling services, survivors can receive mental health counseling for free, but only 5 times. They can only have 5 sessions with a mental health professional. After that time, the charge for those sessions goes on their U-bill, which means they either have to find a way to provide payment themselves or they have to work through their parents' insurance. If 90% of sexual assaults on college campuses go unreported, imagine how many times parents never find out what happens, and therefore that student is unable to access insurance payments to pay for the mental health counseling that they need. At Riverview Center, our college coordinator is able to connect those students with our mental health service provider, who is trained in both cognitive behavioral theory as well as EMDR, which is specially designed to affect the impact of PTSD that sexual assault survivors experience, and our services are 100% free for as long as they need them. So at this current time, we are serving many UNI students who are receiving mental health counseling through Riverview Center free of charge. Okay? The services certainly that we provide are essential for those who are assaulted while in college. But if you think about the fact that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 7 boys experiences some form of childhood sexual abuse, imagine if you think about the number of kids that are assaulted while in college, and then you add to it the number of kids that bring with them a history of childhood sexual abuse, which if you look at the research has a dramatic impact in their ability to learn, their ability to create healthy relationships, their ability to focus, and their ability to sustain any kind of goal orientation that they have. You can imagine that this is a healthy number of students in the UNI community that is in serious need of our services. At this time, with our position that we have at UNI, we work very closely with the Office of Compliance and Equity Management, or the Title IX office. We collaborate with various offices on campus, including the Student Wellness Center, Residential Life, Student Accessibility Services, UNI Campus Security, and the Department of Public Safety, which also participates in our sexual assault response team that meets monthly with all members of the community that work in the area of sexual assault response, including law enforcement, sexual assault nurse examiners, the county attorney, all that come together to continually work to improve services for our response to sexual assault, including those on the campus. We work with the Gender and Sexuality Services Department and many others. Ethan is a wonderful conduit for those students for all kinds of support services that are available. The return on investment for this position is huge. With your help, we will continue to grow the presence of Ethan and Riverview Center on UNI campus, and our assistance of the women and men that are managing at this time, maintaining and moving beyond their trauma will continue to grow. We can absolutely cut that almost 40% attrition rate for students that are sexually assaulted while on campus by providing them the support that they need, by helping them learn to kind of thrive beyond, to work to pursue the careers that they want, and hopefully stay here in our community and contribute to our community. We have several instances of that, of students that we have worked who have stayed with us. They actually are wonderful advocates for us on the UNI community. They serve on survivor panels that Ethan hosts to teach other students how to manage after they've been sexually assaulted. And we're very proud of the work that we've done. What has happened historically, we have had our staffing model that we use here in the Waterloo area, and we've made the decision because the university is such an important part of the work that we do, and we know there's so many students on the campus that need us. We have decided to allocate one of our advocate positions from our Waterloo office to be on the UNI campus. So that's where Ethan is. He was hired as part of the large organization, but we've chosen to put him on the UNI campus because we know that's important, and we do have an MOU with the university to provide those services on the campus. As funding, though, gets tighter and tighter from the state level, we're finding it much more difficult to allocate that position specifically to UNI, and we don't want to lose it. And that's why we're here to ask for your help.
You receive funding from UNI?
No, not even a parking pass. That's the one that always gets me. We still even have to pay for our parking pass. No, we do not. We receive an office.
And you're there, then you hope to be there 5 days a week? or-
We are there. His office is there. He will come and help in the Waterloo office if needed. We were able to kind of be fluid with that, but his main responsibility is at an office on the campus. He does a lot of classroom presentations, does partner with a lot of those other organizations that have needs. We do trainings with the Center for Violence Prevention. He helps facilitate their MVP program with Alan Heisterkamp and Michael Fleming from the center, Michael's on our board. So he's dug in, but we need to do more, and we need to keep this position for sure.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're also very active in Dubuque, and I think that you've had a relationship with their county board for a number of years.
Yes, so we serve 14 counties. There are 4 offices here. There's one in Dubuque, there's one in Cedar Rapids, and there's Decorah. And the Board of Supervisors in Dubuque do provide funding for one position in our Dubuque office, and that's a therapist position. Our therapist here is funded by wonderful funding through the United Way, and this is, our request to you is then to help us maintain this position for UNI.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you have questions, thank you so much.
Great service.
All right, last but not least, junior achievement.
Good morning. My name is Caitlin Tunglin. I'm the Senior District Manager of Junior Achievement of Eastern Iowa. I just want to say, wow, these grant requests are significant. And so I just want to give a little background of Junior Achievement. So we are a nonprofit organization that partners with the local schools in the local community to recruit business volunteers to put them into the classroom to teach financial literacy, work readiness, and entrepreneurship. So what we think and what we see our organization as is being proactive. So all of these needs in our community, we're looking for talent, we're looking for retention, we're looking for financial assistance. Junior Achievement is trying to get you people, you professionals into the classroom to teach these students young to be self-sufficient, to be successful business owners and employees here in the community. So this special request is actually at the request of the Waterloo Community School District. So we have K through 12 programming in all Waterloo schools, and we're looking to create an initiative for entrepreneurship. So again, K through 12 program that focuses on entrepreneurship. So we've created some great partners as we've built these programs. Again, Waterloo Schools, as well as Papa John Entrepreneurial Center at UNI. And actually, we have agreed with Hawkeye Community College to get co-current credit for these programs in the Waterloo schools. So this funding would go directly to this entrepreneurship mindset program. Again, it progresses from kindergarten to elementary to middle to high school. And we actually have mentors from the Entrepreneurial Center and over 100 business leaders from Black Hawk County in these Waterloo schools, teaching these kids about entrepreneurship, how they can be successful by running their own business and finding their passion and making something of it. So with that, I just want to end with a story because I've taught many entrepreneurship classes. My favorite question to ask, especially in the young grade, is what do you want to be when you grow up? Most of the kids answer, well, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a firefighter. Or I want to do what my parents do. Okay, that's great. Absolutely. So one little girl stood up and she goes, I want to paint fingernails. I love going to the nail salon with my mom, so I want to paint nails when I grow up. After the 6-week session about entrepreneurship, I asked the class again, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she says, I want to own a series of nail salons. I want to manage people painting nails because I learned that I could do that through you as my mentor in my classroom. So again, this funding would help us with our new initiative with Waterloo Community Schools. We're actually going to have programs in the new Career Center because that's a void in the school. They do not teach entrepreneurship currently. So our goal is to bring you in as business professionals to help teach it. So thank you for your time. Any questions?
Yeah. I just wondering do you have an estimate about how many students you think would be eligible for college credits at Hawkeye?
So right now, this funding specifically would cover about 12% of the total budget. So that's roughly 2,700 students, and that's in the continuum of kindergarten through high school. So the high school level is probably going to be around 100 students. So if they choose to use that in the Career Academy, they can do co-current credit with Hawkeye Community College.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
You receive funding from who else?
So because we do partner with the Waterloo schools, they do pay a third of our programming.
Okay, well, thank you.
Any other question? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, James?
That is all the grant presentations, so I appreciate coming out. You're welcome to stay. We will transition into elections, and then the sheriff's budgets, and then end with maintenance.
Would folks like to take a 5-minute recess?
Take 5.
All right, 5-minute recess.
Chris.
That's right.
They'll wander back up.
5 minutes, nobody keeps track of it.
All right, that concludes today's recess, and we will move on. I believe we are starting with elections.
Yes, you bet. I have elections up on the board, and I will let Grant discuss it.
Okay. You can see that this is kind of looked at in a couple of different ways. Normally, you compare. There it goes.
Three ways.
Yep.
There, I guess our budget was obliterated. You can see the current year, the FY21 request in comparison with previous years, but then you see that column that shows the change from FY17. That's significant for us because our cycle of elections obviously means that we're not going to have the same expenses and revenues every year. So the last similar year would be the last presidential election, which would have been in FY17, the 2016 election. So you can see that revenues, anticipated revenues are down because we don't have any in this year's request. And the overall grand total is up about 33,000, but that's, about half of that is because of the revenue. And since our revenue is an in and out deal, that's, kind of it's not an apples to apples picture. Normally when we have revenues, it's for city and school elections or special elections held by cities and schools. So anyway, it's even with that, it's not a very significant difference from 4 years ago. The one thing that we're doing differently that I want to talk about, that if you've looked at our salary sheets, that you'll see as a kind of a significant difference, is our part-time help. We're showing.
You had that sheet, James.
What, the actual salaries? Yeah.
We have a number of part-time staff that were already in the budget, but we're going to have some temporary part-time staff that we'll be using for the general election this year. That's in addition to what we had before because of a major change in how we're processing absentee ballots. You may recall that 4 years ago and also up through the 2018 general election, we outsourced the printing and mailing of our absentee ballots to a third-party vendor that worked with the voting machine company that we used. And that made things less hectic for us in the office, and we thought that it was working out pretty good, but there were some problems with this outsourcing, with them getting things done in a timely fashion, and under law we're required to have an absentee ballot sent out within 24 hours of us receiving the request, at least after the absentee period begins. And we were kind of called to the carpet on that by the Secretary of State's office. We gave an explanation. They accepted the explanation. But we found that we didn't have the confidence in this third-party vendor that we needed to have, and so we're bringing the absentee ballot process back in-house. So that means that we're going to need more people, and actually if you compare the part-time budget 4 years ago, we had 6 part-time people at a cost of $46,363. This time it's going to be 16 part-time people, but the total cost that we're estimating is just $30,378. And the reason for that we're having more people but less cost is because the law change that the legislature passed a few years ago. It used to be that there was a 40-day window before the election that people could vote absentee, and the legislature shortened that to 29 days. So, you know, we can't tell for sure how many people that voted absentee last time will be affected by this. You know, you can expect that there will be some decrease in the number of absentees. That certainly seems to be the intent of the legislation. But we also expect that a lot of people that are used to voting absentee, even though there's a shorter window, that they're going to try to get within that window, which means we're going to have a more intense period of processing these absentee ballots, which is a very labor-intensive job that has to be done with great precision. So we're going to have more people, but less time. So that's really the main difference in our budget comparing to 2017 and also to last year.
So you're going from 14 to 16, is that what you said?
No, we're going from 6 to 16.
6 to 16.
Yeah. But the hours, just, you know, they're not all equal in hours, so the actual cost is anticipated to be less. And also another way we can do that comparison is when we did the vote by mail through the third-party vendor in 2016, the cost was that we paid to them was $22,553. Our estimate for doing it in-house is about $23,000, so very small difference there. Any questions about that or any other part of the budget?
Word, any questions on elections?
No.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Grant.
Oh, and I did want to mention that Karen Showalter would have been here to help present the budget, but the schedule got changed around and she had a vacation scheduled for this week, so she's unable to attend.
Very good. All right, James?
All right, perfect. Next up, we'll have Sheriff Tony Thompson.
We had 5 people on the phone at our meeting the other day. That's horrible. Must be out on the deck. Smoke a cigar, man.
I heard a seagull.
Ask him what the temperature is there.
Thanks, Tony.
I just brought everything in case we need to have a conversation.
I should do it.
Okay. Yeah, you don't, let's start with yours. We don't need mine, Rory, right now, just in case I need to pull something on it.
Otherwise, if you wanted to, you could always bring your laptop over here and we could plug it in this way.
This will work. I think this is okay.
So it shows what, James, and a 6.93 increase in operating.
That's correct.
It looks like some of that's salaries and,
Yeah, if you look at this, operating was what we mainly focused on, and it's 0.59, which is kind of where you asked us to be. You wanted 0. I couldn't quite get you to 0 because, again, vehicles cost us a little bit more. There are some contracts that are going to cost us a little bit more. Some of that operating I couldn't keep at 0, but by and large, most of that increase that you're
are
seeing.
the vehicles in your operating or capital?
Vehicles are in capital.
Yeah.
But there are pieces of equipment that go to vehicles, cages, consoles.
That's in your operating along with wages.
Yeah. So there's not a lot really to talk about from a generalized perspective on what we were asked to present. However, there's a lot to talk about with current events and things of that nature with regard to courthouse security, Pinecrest, and there are a couple things that I do want to discuss that were not included in this budget, but we are in the process of working through, and that's why Monica Paulson's here from County Social Services. That's why Sam Hudson's here from North Iowa Juvenile Detention and the Access Center and Crisis Stabilization Center. Amber Lucina and Tom Ekus was here as well to talk about both pre-arrest and post-arrest diversion. One of the things that I highlighted on our annual report is the numbers in jail. And what I don't want to be is that sheriff that comes to you here in a couple of years and says you've got to continue to build more beds. So anything that we can do to divert and be more responsive and responsible to the 272 beds that we have in that facility, I think are to our advantage. So we really are excited and interested in the opportunity to partner with some of these fine folks to find both pre-arrest and post-arrest diversion opportunities that help diminish demand.
How many you got on the outside currently?
Say that again.
How many are on the outside right now currently? Farmed out?
On warrant or probation,
Other
parole?
jails,
Other counties.
You know, that number is a little bit diminished right now simply because of the time of year. But including juveniles, we're probably 16 to 20 right now.
20.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not as bad as it used to.
No, it's not too bad. We actually converted 4 beds over the last couple of years to juvenile holding because we're seeing these forcible felons becoming younger and younger. So the requirement is to hold them sight and sound separate. And we actually converted the female maximum security area to a juvenile detention facility. So we are holding the hardest to place. Sometimes Sam will say we cannot hold these folks. They're too violent. They're too problematic. Even though they're waived to adult court, we try and place them in a more appropriate placement location. But when we can legally hold them in the jail, we will. And so we've got 4 beds for those kinds of folks as well. But we only budget about $100,000 for out-of-county holds like that. And you saw there in the annual report, September, October, we got nearly to 300 beds being occupied by Blackhawk County citizens. So it got a little tight for a while. And we have that every year. But again, the more creative we can get, we know that our post-arrest diversion with Sarah Carter, that's a $70,000 investment that we pay for out of room and board, is one of the finest in the state. We've had survey and research done on that. Keith Crew and
What's been going on all day?
man, Keith Crew and Joe Gordon from UNI did statistical review and research on it, presented it to the Department of Corrections, and gave us huge attaboys on the amount of money as well as the amount of impact that's being had and the recidivism reduction that's done. on that, and it's one person being able to triage really the hardest to place, the folks that has burned bridges everywhere that nobody will take. And so the question still remains, if she's taking 1% of the 30 to 60% of our population that could be diverted after being arrested, an investment in maybe a bachelor's prepared social worker that could work alongside of her, a county worker, a county employee that could work full-time in the jail, work cooperatively with our NAFCARE employees. We've got a full-time mental health clinician in the facility. There are no county jails in the state that do that, not even Polk County, that have that kind of investment. But NAFCARE found that to be a viable and reasonable investment for what they do and what they deal with. So,
How much time does Sarah spend in the jail?
well, I pay $70,000 of her roughly $110,000 salary and benefits position, so we get her almost full-time. But she also has a caseload too, so she's a probation officer, so she's out following up on those people, trying to make sure that they're taking their medication.
You're
making
happy
sure
with
they-
her attendance?
Absolutely,
So far in the jail?
absolutely. I'm not just her attendance, but her impact.
Yeah.
That program would be nowhere without her, and the amount of impact that we have with her, if I could double it with another body, for those lesser problematic but still needing to get out of our facility, get their heads out of our beds kind of facility folks, that's something that's very entertaining to me. And quite frankly, it's a cost savings to the county in the long run. So it's something that I would encourage consideration, that I didn't bring to you in the budget as a finance piece, but it's something that I think is worth a contemplation point.
She started out as a part-time, didn't she?
Correct.
And then was moved up to full-time.
Correct. Now, the second piece is really what Monica and Tom and everybody else was here to talk about, and that is pre-arrest diversion. That's something that we do not have in Blackhawk County right now. County Social Services put out an RFP a year ago. So they asked for mobile crisis response. They wanted within their 22 county region, they wanted people to go out and respond in lieu of law enforcement. They wanted people to pre-arrest, divert, and find a pre-arrest response. Blackhawk County didn't have anyone respond. Over in Fort Dodge, they had a private entity respond, and the problem that they're finding is there's a lot of, I won't call it animosity, but they're having difficulty interlacing that private company response with law enforcement. So one of our CIT instructors that has been working very closely both with County Social Services as well as with the folks from San Antonio that come up to teach crisis intervention training, he's actually been traveling with those folks from San Antonio, came into my office about 3 months ago and said, hey, I've got a great idea. Why don't we try and stand up a mobile crisis unit? Why don't we try and circumvent some of these calls that are ending up coming to jail because the officers aren't utilizing CIT? They're finding the quickest, most advantageous route, and that is wipe their hands clean of it, take them to jail, and let the jail deal with it. So we started pursuing that. We started talking with Bob Lincoln. We started talking about this RFP that they put out, and quite frankly, it sounds like, number one, nobody does this in the state of Iowa, not from an officer perspective. We know the model. We've seen the model. I've been to San Antonio. I've looked at the model. And so I know what it takes to do it. We are currently negotiating with Bob to figure out how to fund that model and how to make it real here. But that would be a true pre-arrest diversion, so that we don't get those people that are hissing like cats at the hotel president, licking the glass at the Love's Travel Center, the people that are easily arrested for disorderly conduct, trespass, simple assaults, whatever, but could realistically be diverted for mental health treatment more readily. And that sounds like I'm less than prideful of the efforts that we put forth in that jail. I'm super prideful of what we do there. It's just that a county jail is not supposed to be a mental health facility. It's not what our charge is. So the amount of energy and investment that we put into our mental health capacity in that county jail is time and money wasted when we could be looking at more creative ways to be more effective and more efficient.
State has a lot of blame for that.
Absolutely. And don't think for a second that I'm not engaged and not involved at the state level too. This year, it's all about getting state buy-in. I was with the governor just about 3 weeks ago, trying to push the fact that the state has to have skin in this game as well. So, but at the very grassroots level, it all comes down to, how does this impact me? How does this impact my agency? How does this impact my staff? And every single day, we deal with those hard-to-place people. We deal with being at the very bottom of that funnel. We deal with, there's no other place to put them, so let's just go ahead and arrest them and arrest our way out of the problem. We don't. We don't arrest our way out of the problem. We criminalize the mentally ill. We make it much more difficult for them because they can't get out of the criminal justice system. They fail on probation. They recidivate. They have a much more difficult time navigating the court systems. They cost us more money. We do a very good job in Black Hawk County. We partner very, very well with all of these organizations that we work with. And right now, the reason we're having this conversation today and not 4 years ago, 2 years ago, even a year and a half ago, is because the bigger question for us, if we did stand up a team, was, okay, we can divert, but divert to what? There was no place to take them. Now Pathways has opened their substance abuse detox center. We are on the verge, working with Sam, of opening up the Access Center, which is a no eject, no reject acute center that we're supposed to be able to, according to the way the rules were written. And I was there, one of two sheriffs, drawing out on a crayon and a Big Chief tablet how this was supposed to work on the mental health reform side of the house. The rules and working with state legislators trying to accommodate what an access center actually would look like. And I appreciate Sam's both hesitation and trepidation and his careful approach to opening this facility up. So I think the win-win here is being able to work cooperatively and collaboratively with County Social Services, establish this team, and this team probably will not be all law enforcement. Right now, Pathways wrote a grant with the support and involvement and engagement of the Stepping Up Coalition through the Office of Drug Control Policy and Dale Woolery to address substance abuse. That grant is going to place 2 substance abuse counselors within the Black Hawk County Sheriff's Office. We're going to house them there. They're going to work full-time in the jail. So we're addressing both substance abuse now and then the mental health that we're already addressing. That 1.5 FTE, 2 FTEs, whatever that ends up being off of this ODCP grant, becomes a partner with this pre-arrest mobile crisis team. We work then with Tom Ekas's team. This has been a passion of his since before I was elected. In fact, one of the first meetings I had as a newly elected sheriff was with Tom Ekas and Chris Hoffman saying, how can we do this? So 11 years later, here we still sit talking about how do we do this. But we're a little closer now because we actually have funding. We actually have funding on the table saying, if you can do it for this amount of money, let's work our way forward. I'm just not sure that we can do it for this amount of money. So there's still negotiating that needs to be done. The nice thing about this from our perspective, talking today, is I'm not asking you for the money. But what I am going to have to ask you for is your indulgence. I'm going to have to ask you for your willingness to allow us to enter into these kinds of contracts, your willingness to allow me, if I enter into a contract with County Social Services to start mobile crisis, I'm going to have to hire bodies to supplant the bodies that I move to mobile crisis, which will increase our number of employees. So that'll come before you at some point. Obviously, it will be funded. It will be funded through that partnership, through that contract with County Social Services. But all of this is fluid. All of this is a work in progress right now. But it's all stuff that I'm excited about. It's all stuff that I do truly see the impact for. It's stuff that I think is moving in the right direction. It's stuff that certainly the county should be responsive to, should be responsible for. And it has the proper impact, not simply build a bigger jail because we can't be insightful enough to address the root of the real problem. And there's a whole lot more to the root of the real problem. I'm picking the low-hanging fruit. I'm picking the fruit that is the most obvious to us and the fruit that probably bears the most impact. Because mental health in our county jail right now has an enormous impact. And if we can properly curb that issue, we won't have to discuss bed space, not for a considerable amount of time.
It's like we talk about at the 22 county coalition.
Absolutely.
That too many people don't realize how many people are dealing with mental health issues. And it's not one of those things you go out and say, hey, I got cancer, I just found out I got cancer. You don't go around town bragging that you got a problem with mental health.
Right. Well, and that stigma, that's maybe the third piece of all of this, that stigma that's associated with mental illness. We've been beating that drum. We raised, we did the breakfast for Blackhawk County Mental Health this spring, or this fall rather, and I think the more we talk about this, the more we bring it to the spotlight, the more we bring it into the light. It's not something to be shying away from, whether we're talking about PTSD issues or we're talking about true mental health issues. There's more of it out there.
We had somebody come in from Kansas University and speak for 3 hours last Wednesday at our meeting on CSS, and she hit the nail on the head on everything she was talking about.
Well, I think this is the right place for us to be. This is the right place for me to be budgetarily. And I just wish I was further along than what I am right now, other than to tell you that you asked me for a budget, I gave you roughly the budget that you asked for, knowing full well that I'm going to have to give it to you with an asterisk that there's more to come. But the more that's coming, other than asking you for consideration for a body that can be a bachelor's prepared social worker that can work cooperatively with Sarah Carter to help with post-arrest diversion. And I've given the board chair kind of a job description and stuff. We've been working on that for a couple of years now. That is something just worth contemplating. That is something worth recognizing the impact that she has and considering what another body might look like and the type of impact full-time as a county employee, having that as their full-time focus, not also having to do follow-up, probation, home visits, all the things the Department of Corrections requires. Ken Koltoff is very much involved with this conversation, is very much a fan of the collaboration and the potential for partnership in this as well. So I think it's unique. Again, this whole diversion program is unique, the way we approach it versus the way Dubuque County's approaching it, the way Polk County approaches theirs. But the way we approach it works. And it helps expedite people out of our facility, which is important too.
You mentioned this person being a full-time county employee, and as opposed to Sarah, which is a Department of Corrections with you subsidizing though. Okay, so that would be a part of.
That's the contemplation. That's what I'm asking you to consider.
And similar, I would, well, maybe not quite similar in salary, but something.
Right. She's a master's prepared, so I would assume that we can reduce that salary reasonably.
Timeline, I know.
Is that one you've been talking with Bob about? Is that anything you're talking about?
No, Bob is all pre-arrest stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that the pre-arrest and having a fully integrated crisis response team that's integrated into law enforcement, I think if we're able to get that implemented here in Blackhawk County, that's going to become the model that gets followed across the state, because that's what makes sense. We see the downfalls that people are hesitant to hand the calls over to these entities that aren't incorporated with law enforcement, and so I think it's really, really exciting. And I fully support us moving in that direction, and really grateful that County Social Services is considering partnering with us here in Blackhawk County. As far as adding the bachelor's social work position to do more post-arrest diversion, I think that we've proven that is going to pay for itself, as would all the pre-arrest investment as well. But anything we can do to get us to the point where we're not having to outsource as many beds, and we're certainly not having to look at having to expand the amount of beds in this county, is going to save us a lot of money down the road, in addition to just being the morally right thing to be doing.
Well, we've always said the post-arrest diversion is a great program, but if we can get people on the front side of that
Right.
pre-arrest and have that addressed.
Fewer
saves us
people
money,
that
but
Brian
helps
has to
people.
deal with, fewer people into the criminal justice system, fewer people recidivating.
But I doubt if
great,
you'll
but-
ever eliminate the need
Oh,
for
yeah.
Outsourcing
No.
and people to, I mean, it's.
No, I've got no visions of
been that
grandeur
way
on
for the
that.
last 15 years, and it's gonna continue.
Yep.
Is there any type, are you thinking this will, much of this as far as some answers for you would happen this year?
Well,
you're
we're talking
working
about the
with
FY '21
Bob,
budget. I'm hoping to be able to do something as early
By
as July.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah. Standing up a mobile crisis team will probably take us longer than that. But we're having conversations right now on, number one, what does it look like? How do we interface? How do we make it work with the players that need to be engaged? So that, we've got the right team. We've got the right thinkers in the room to make this happen. And we've been talking about this for years. What I like about this is we're not just talking. We're actually trying to put rubber to the road now. So,
It's a complicated
oh my goodness.
matter, and there's so many different ways. And then funding has always been the key, I mean, in all the programs.
Well, Bob, being a good fiscal conservative, lowballed me at 500,000, and I said we can't do it for 500,000. We couldn't field it for that. But he too recognizes just exactly what Chris says. This model is the model, and he kind of expressed that. So we may be able to squeeze Bob a little bit harder and find a few more nickels and dimes out of Bob's pocket. And
Can we find
keep
other
working.
resources as well? To put
I hope so. Yeah, absolutely. I hope, there's COP grants out there. There's things that I hesitate to jump into simply because it's a limited exposure kind of opportunity. 5 years, 3 years, whatever, then the obligation comes back on the county. Anything that we do with either of these positions, and then we haven't talked about courthouse security yet, but I don't want to be there 3 years from now having to lay somebody off because we were narrow-focused or narrow-sighted enough that we didn't plan long-term for the sustainability of whatever we do. Whatever we do, we recognize we're going to have impact with. We know it's going to be a long-term investment. We need to be long-term and long-term sighted enough that we can fund it for the long term. If we're in for a penny, we need to be in for the pound. And so the investment needs to be realistic as well as the rollout. That's why I think, number one, I think law enforcement's awfully expensive when it comes to mobile crisis. I think we can probably do social workers and mental health and substance abuse clinicians maybe cheaper than law enforcement, but partnering them with law enforcement to ride tandem so that you have some safety security protocol as well as some mental health and substance abuse protocol associated with it. We may be able to find that homogeneous response between all of that in that team. But again, these are all things that we're currently working with county social services, with the players that are at the table, talking about what does this really end up looking like? Because it is required that it's 24/7, 365. So trying to field that, trying to fund that, trying to establish what does that truly look like, and for not just one county, but maybe up to 4 county area of response. That's a challenge.
That was what I was going to ask as well, because it's sometimes a challenge for the consortium of 22 counties when they look at who they think.
And I don't disparage Bob wanting to fund it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes good
That's
sense
great.
too.
Yeah.
But we've made huge amounts of training investment in our staff. Obviously, we deal with mental health every day. We do all the emergency committals, all of those kinds of court-ordered mental health responses. So the amount of mental health tools that we put in those officers' toolbox, I'm prideful of, and being able to deploy that training in this significantly new way. I'm comfortable that we have the right training on board. We will isolate on the 1 or 2 right officers and then maybe try and partner them with 1 or 2 right officers from Waterloo, Cedar Falls. Maybe bring on a few clinicians from, again, some of the partnering agencies and make this team what it needs to be able to facilitate that. So that's the vision anyway.
Chris was talking about that last night at Pathways too, about some of that stuff.
Yeah.
the girls that are over at the KWWO building, having them work with you too.
Right.
So that's something he's looking at seriously.
We're excited. I was working with Grant. I was trying to convince, actually cajole Grant to be the fiscal agent for that grant because we don't know nothing about no money. But he convinced us that we can do it with their help. So we're going to be the fiscal agent for that grant for Pathways and make that happen. Then we're just going to find suitable office space for them to make that work. So really, that's something that's going to happen regardless of what we do pre-arrest diversion-wise, to both be able to do what we're already doing mental health-wise and be able to do that substance abuse-wise. It's a huge start.
It's a good part.
Huge start. Absolutely.
Good fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the bachelor's of social work position, are you looking for an indication from this board about whether we're open to that for this budget year?
Absolutely. If this is something that you are interested in doing, like I say, I provided you with a job description that you can give deliberation to. I'm going to guess salary benefits wise, we're probably talking about $110,000, depending on what benefits they take from the county. So that would be the investment.
Where's the funding coming from?
Well, that's
Room and board?
just it. It can, but it depends on what we talk about next with courthouse security. I can bring that room and board fund up so you can take a hard look at what actually sits in that fund. But again, I'm invested in long-term sustainability for that as well. So it's a possibility, depending on what you want to do courthouse-wise, what you want to do Pinecrest-wise, what you want to do other way, when we talk about some of those other.
You plan on addressing that today?
Well, I stand here flat-footed to address whatever you want to
I'm talking
address.
about the courthouse.
Absolutely.
I mean, it needs attention immediately, but I don't see where it really belongs towards your budget, because we have no idea.
I know.
No idea, and I don't know if have we had any meetings since?
Well,
last
the goal was to have a work session, and somebody asked me this morning if you wanted to roll this into one of those work sessions. I said, I'm here, and I've got the numbers. Brian and I have met. We are going to meet again with, we are going to meet again this Friday with the courts, with the chief judge.
They were talking
I
about
want to
that.
straddle you.
They were talking about that position too, where they Tony coming on your room and board.
Yeah.
Or upstairs.
Well, so courthouse security, that's what that fund is for.
Understand.
The 60% is for room and board, of room and board is for courthouse security. That's codified. But again, right now, that 60% of room and board has a little over 300,000 in it. So right now, what we're doing, we have 6, we call them utility squad. And the utility squad is the team that provides all transports, extraditions, transports including if they have a doctor's appointment, dentist appointment, those kinds of things, taking them to prisons, going out and picking them up in Chicago, picking them up in Rochester, meeting the airplane, whatever, flying out and picking them up from other jurisdictions. And anybody that is currently incarcerated, providing for that courthouse security for incarcerated inmates. Not 4 years ago, that was 2 bodies. So we have, and I think last budget or the budget before, we added a body to that team. I asked you for it, you gave me the body, and it was because we recognized how much impact we were having and how much need there was for this. Well, back when we only had 2 bodies doing courthouse security, and today we have 6, we're not doing anything different than what we were doing when we only had 2 bodies. So the demand has increased such that it now takes 6 bodies to be able to do the same thing that we were doing with only 2. The challenge for us is in the stopgap, what I've asked is anytime they're not physically doing something in the jail, in a courtroom, walk the halls. So you're seeing that, but it's kind of an ad hoc, when we can kind of response, which is good presence patrolling. But the reality is, if we're going to have a problem, Murphy tells me that we're gonna have the problem when I don't have somebody over here because they're all tied up on transports over at the jail courtroom, in a courtroom up here, and it's gonna happen someplace where we don't have somebody. So if we can put 2 bodies here and assign them to that utility squad, but their assignment is here, they wouldn't actually walk around in tandem, but you would have 2 bodies constantly moving throughout this facility, that's their full-time assignment. And either every day or every couple of days, every 3 days, they rotate back into the mix. They don't get bored with it. We keep everybody moving, but you now have a full-time presence
You don't
here.
think that's a waste of resource?
Probably, probably.
Academy trained.
But what I don't want is exactly what happened.
Yeah, I understand that.
And, you know, just as quickly as I was sitting here during your conversations about, you know, Pinecrest building, not a week or 2 after you had a conversation that nothing ever happens at the Pinecrest building, you had a lady try and skewer somebody with Old Glory.
Yeah.
That stuff happens. And to be aware that we have this chink in our armor, to be aware that we aren't probably where we need to be, there's a strong likelihood that all of us can be brought into a suit about deliberate indifference. And that's not where I want to be. So I present you with what I find to be a very plausible response, a very reasonable response to address and shore up courthouse security so that at least I'm not being deliberately indifferent when I tell you we can have an impact. There's
Adding
things that we
one
can do.
person
Huh? Adding 2.
For here,
Yep.
and they both come out room and board?
Well,
I know we talked about one that.
Rory, bring up my monitor. Can you see my monitor?
Can you have James pull it up on his? Can you just move your computer over?
Absolutely.
That's not working.
Have you had any more talks with Brian since we've had the board talk? So you guys have met?
Yeah. So all I want to show you just very quickly, this is an Excel spreadsheet that Billy prepares for me. Susan used to prepare for me. And really all that matters, you can see a statistical of every year what's come out of that room and board, what we've paid for every year. There's notes of out of the 60%, out of the 40%, what comes out of room and board. But really what matters is right here, the bottom lines. There's 304,000, almost 305,000 sitting in the 60%. There's 263,000 sitting in the 40%. So all told, in room and board, there's only $568,000.
What's a body worth right now total?
About $120,000. One FTE equals about $120,000 with the current union contract. Now, Brian and I talked about this because, again, I talked and I stressed about long-term sustainability. He's got some collection funds. I've got room and board funds. I can't use inmate commissary for this. There's about a little over $500,000 sitting in inmate revenue or inmate commissary, but that is for the direct benefit of the inmate, right? This is codified. This is where that money comes from. The state code tells us that 60% of room and board goes to courthouse security. Well, I don't know that it's sustainable. That's the problem.
Well, let me ask you this, obviously we're trying to improve the situation. Can we do it in steps? Hire one now?
The only reason I brought 2 is I think tactically. I don't want to be here by myself when a fight breaks out. And I don't want to know my nearest backup is 3 minutes away when a fight breaks out. So 2, I will go to battle with 2. Even if he is on 3rd floor or 4th floor while I'm on 3rd floor. I know my response is 30 seconds away rather than 3 minutes away. So my response to that is it's a tactical maneuver, not a financial maneuver. And I would sooner defend my tactics over my finances. My officer's safety over the financial cost. Now, I want to show you one more thing.
Can we get a copy of that, Tony, as well?
Absolutely. This is what room and board has been doing since I took office. another problem that we're facing, it's not that we're not trying to raise room and board revenues, it's not that we're not trying to hold people accountable, but you all have heard about the Gross decision and what's the other Supreme Court ruling? Albright? The Albright decision, where it comes to reasonable ability to pay. We've got judges now that are saying they don't have the reasonable ability to pay because they don't have a job. They're sitting in jail right now. And so they're quashing their room and board fees. And it's not that we're not trying to raise those fees, we're not trying to collect those fines, those funds, but it's dramatically cutting down the amount of funds that we're able to collect. And we're only collecting about 30% of what's owed to the county anyway. So we're seeing a dramatic reduction. You're going to continue to see that trend line drop based on that. We are trying to work with the legislature to change some of that language a little bit to help us a little bit. But at the end of the day,
When was
that just simply
when
isn't
was that changed, Tony?
last year.
Last year?
Yeah, it affected this last year's numbers
The
dramatically.
2019?
Yeah. There you can see kind of what our averages are, what the dollar figures were. Obviously, our higher water mark was there in 2013.
Yeah.
And then every year. And some of that has to do with just the fact that I was kind of new and learning the ropes and figuring out how all of that worked from 9, 10, and 11 to really start having impact. And then they started catching on too that he can beat his chest and ask for the money, but if I don't give it to him or I don't have any money to give, you can't get blood out of a turnip either. And so some of that plateaued pretty quickly too. We're still much better off than we were before I took office when it came to collections, but we're going to continue to diminish. So when I talk about room and board funds as a possible funding mechanism, it's not the total answer because it won't be there sustainability-wise.
Well, if and when that happens, then that's when the board's gonna have to make a decision.
Well, right now, at 300,000+ sitting in that 60%, it doesn't happen now with a plan for 2. Right? Or it doesn't happen for,
You're looking at about 240. That's leaving very little in there for,
the second year.
Yeah.
I myself don't see it as a big problem right now. I think we're throwing money out the window. You know, it happened. It's going to happen no matter what. And I think we're going to cause more problems. Just listening to people, seeing the sheriff deputies walking around in here, it's like, what's going on? What's going on? You know, it's especially in this community. We just heard how big a problem we got with mental health. Have somebody in here come in here with mental health issues and see all the deputies instead of just seeing the people we got here that do a fine job for us. I see more problems than I see.
And they've all been coached. I mean, the coach was we're playing officer friendly to the county.
Yeah.
You know, I said, I want you to get intimately familiar with all the county offices, know the back hallways,
Yeah.
you know, get to know the staff, let them know that you're here for their safety, let them know that, you know, you're the good guys that are, you know, so it's a difficult role. But again, it's punctuated with some of the most recent incident. You had 2 Pinecrest staff here that were pining for the opportunity to talk to you today about the Pinecrest incident.
I think that can be addressed right now when we're doing stuff out there now, fixing stuff. A system can be put in that they got to buzz in to get into the office.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if there's been any meetings on that part yet.
No, I don't
As far as
either.
Pinecrest.
And I don't know that I really want to be in. Number one, room and board funds can't be used for Pinecrest.
No.
And I don't really want to put an
It's
officer
a
out.
situation like you said upstairs could happen any time, but by 16 years, I can't recall that kind of a situation on a Pinecrest to that level. And that's not to say it can't happen again today. But the question is, what do you do? You know, we could have our 2 security downstairs there, but that wouldn't make much difference. They had to call deputy anyway, and they can't put their hands on them. So that's a tough one there out there.
Yeah.
I think Craig's got a good idea that when we do our renovations out there and so forth, I think we're gonna have to secure more of those doors. And I think that'll make a big difference where people can't get in there. And, obviously VA's moving from where they're at now and all this happened, so they're gonna be somewhat in a secured area, but
I think that was their issue, though. They felt a little more exposed rather
Well,
than secured.
but they're the ones that wanted to go over there now too, so.
Yeah, I know. I just meant, I think that was it, that they
And,
thought there wasn't.
I guess, they'll have to think through while we're doing the renovations on what we could put in place to help that security area, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, the front door, gonna be pretty hard to secure, but them side
Well, like I
doors.
said in my email, I think with Pinecrest, now is the perfect opportunity. We need to view this as an opportunity, and I think with the facts that Rory is getting, we're going to come up with a pretty good solution for the security of that facility.
Dan, I've had a conversation yesterday with Joe, and you probably know some of the facts behind that. There was a little bit of a miscommunication between the Waterloo PD staff and what they understood their obligation to be, and so that's been corrected. But we're gonna have a meeting after this meeting. I said I want to see what the board wants to do with all of that first. If I get clear direction from you all, we're going to talk a little bit further about making sure that we clarify the roles. But we're both kind of on the same sheet of music, as I'm sure you are. That, you know, number one, we shouldn't disregard ourselves on a assault and progress call, and number two, I don't know that anybody here is playing turf war when it comes to, you know, who responds to what. If that means I have to hold somebody by the nape of the neck until Waterloo PD shows up, I'm going to do that, or they can do that, you know, vice versa. So it took us 8 minutes to respond there from the Crossroads area. That response time, I'll stand by all day long, and within 30 seconds, the incident was quelled. So
Clearly, Waterloo could have been there quicker.
maybe, I don't know.
You don't know where they're.
Yep, I don't know.
officers are at.
But you know, on that discussion out there, and this is gonna be for another day, I think the state's gonna have to be involved. They got their offices, but they got that main one right there where they walk into the doors, so I think they have to step up and do their part too. And, in security, I don't know if that door is secured where them ladies working there.
That I don't know either. I know that she got through the secure door for VA. She somehow
They
ripped that
pulled
door.
I know they pulled the window things down, but that's an area too, because they're more vulnerable, because they're the first hit when they come in.
Yeah. But I'm sure it was scary. I mean,
Oh,
she was not happy when we got there. She was not a pleasant person.
But there's some things I think we can do out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that so that we get all the parties involved and all the information compiled.
Yeah.
Sometime that maybe this should be a Tuesday agenda item for a work session on this, if that's
Well,
gives folks enough time to.
Yeah,
I think just have a committee working on it.
I think a committee first and then to the board, because I think obviously Rory's gonna be involved. We're doing renovations out there now. And, maybe bring to the board some ideas, from people out there, director from the VA, the state, on what we can do to make it more secure. But having bodies out there, I don't think is the answer. I really
Do the
don't.
same as they do in the schools, you know, you gotta be buzzed in.
We can
You don't already
initiate,
do that.
initiate a security committee meeting, which the sheriff does sit on that.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And then bring something at that time, Chris, for a work session.
Okay, so we'll have a meeting of the security committee on this issue. I believe that Dan and I are representatives on that as well.
On the security committee?
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
So you're gonna go on the boat to do this meeting?
We'll convene next week, I'm sure. So, all right.
So the big questions I leave you with are, or the big holes in my budget that I leave you with are my post-arrest diversion bachelor's prepared proposal. That's a body that I don't have a strong recommendation for funding source for. An authorization, or at least an understanding, a collaborative partnership between the board, county social services, and the sheriff's office to allow me to continue to entertain the possibility of entering into a contract for pre-arrest mobile crisis response that will involve down the road further conversation, collaboration, obviously, but the possibility of adding bodies to supplant bodies that will respond to that
That's
need.
certainly something we'd have to take a look at when we see the contract after the discussion.
And then lastly is if there's something uniformly that you want me to do with regard to courthouse security and the possibility of funding either out of courthouse security fund, I'm sorry, out of room and board funds or some sort of mutual funding between courthouse security and collection fees, fines from the county attorney's office.
But the key is it has to be sustainable.
Absolutely. Number one, it doesn't make sense to me to hire these people and then 2 years from
You
now say we
can't,
don't have it.
and you can't base it on results because there may not be any results.
Correct.
In fact, it may
Hopefully the result is that nothing
Yeah,
happens.
it could be a deterrent,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that's good duty for deputies, but.
Well, that's why I kind of want to roll them into, you're not doing that every day. You've got rotation in that plan.
So your post-arrest is 100K, pretty much, 100,000, and your cooperative effort, if we partnership, was about 240,000.
But those are grants.
So the post-arrest will be about 110,000, I'm thinking.
Thank you.
About 110,000 for that FTE, for a bachelor's prepared person. And then the pre-arrest diversion plan, I'm hoping that total contract, it was originally floated at 500,000. I'm hoping to getting closer to between 700 and 800,000.
And the two deputies in the courthouse, if we ever to do that, was the 240. The number.
Correct.
Give or
Correct. Yep.
In addition to your budget.
Yep. So all you got to do is give me my marching orders on what you want me to do, and I move forward from there.
But they're not in your budget now.
No.
That's correct. What you see is not, some of that again happened after I presented this because the courthouse debacle occurred, the Pinecrest debacle occurred. We have just started these conversations with county social services for pre-arrest diversion. And I presented the body as an idea along with this pre and post-arrest diversion all at the same time.
Well, I can say I know I want to see this bachelor of social work position in the budget this year, and I think that's an appropriate use of county funds. I think we need to see how much Brian would be able to come up with for those two positions.
He's gone, right?
As well, yeah, I think he just left, and so
He said he'd fund it.
all right, there we have
Whole
it.
thing.
There we have
You
it.
say county funds, what do you mean by county funds?
Well, I think that's an appropriate use of taxpayer funds to be doing something that will ultimately save money in the long run of keeping people out of jail.
I'm not gonna disagree with you or agree with you. For the matter of fact, I don't
Right.
have a big picture on where this budget's gonna go.
Yep.
You may see the final thing and
Yep.
maybe go the opposite direction and start cutting. So I wouldn't commit myself to that at this time, but.
What I'd say is we get the initial first picture of where the whole budget lands. I'd like to see that included in
Oh, we
that
can
first picture, and then
revisit this.
yeah.
And then the other one for courthouse, you got funding for one, but coming up with the other, I don't know if you're gonna have Brian's for, I don't know what he has in there right now.
So, Tom, you're interested, or at least you're comfortable that we have sustainability, we should have sustainability for one body?
Well, you told me you wanna go two or nothing.
I do.
One we could cover on a room and board right now.
And I think that's probably true. I don't know for how long, based on
Well,
knowing that we're treating those
and
monies
that's
down.
a different discussion. I mean, obviously, that's something the board's gonna have to figure out if and when that happens. But the second one, that's a stretch. You can't put it in that area.
Well, the second one could be partially funded, although I don't know where you want to leave that fund balance.
Okay.
But that could be partially funded with that, but you'd be asking for us to subsidize at least a portion of it. Just
Well, I thought
just
you-
a food for thought.
You're talking long-term.
I thought you said something about Brian.
Right.
Well, Brian has indicated that he's willing to be in. Obviously, he was passionate about this. He was passionate the night that it happened. He was passionate. He's still
A
passionate
week
about
later.
this.
Yeah.
So,
But he's currently funding, what, 5 positions right now?
and I don't know what his, I'm not into his funds at all, so I'm not sure.
You know where his is at, James?
Yeah, it was right around the 600,000.
Yeah.
So before we go back, because we haven't done the second round of looking at everybody's budget anyway, but
Right.
we could have those numbers kind of firmed up with what Brian's portion is, what Tony thinks is doable. And see what we'd be. Any thoughts on that, Dan?
No, well, I kind of like where Tom's coming from. We could go with one now. That certainly helps because it's sorely needed. Yeah, and I want to see the overall picture of the entire budget.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a good position, I think, but I want to see all the budgets come in and look at the final numbers and see where we stand.
I think that's what we're just thinking today, to go see what those numbers look like for later, for when we review all this.
Right now, we're averaging about 26,000 a month for total room and board revenues. That's what we're averaging right now. That's going to obviously drop a little bit.
We're looking at, what, 140 for a position?
120-ish per position. Because there is some cost savings. You're supplanting a senior officer for a brand-new officer going into the jail.
You know, if I could, we'll visit this again, but I could agree with the one for now. The question mark for me would be how to fund the second one and also how to fund the one that Chris was talking about. Those are the two there, because you're talking quite a bit of money increase right there. And
Yeah.
that's just one department. You gotta
Oh, I
look
know.
at the other departments we're going through.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't want to paint any bigger target on my back
well,
than I
no,
already have. So.
No.
And nobody's blaming you. It's just,
I think you still need to look at it. Like I said, even if we discount or decide that we can't do two, or if there's no way to do two, or we don't have the funding, I think
Being
it's
here,
still something you look
like
at.
I said, being here every day, I think we're throwing money out the window on this whole little mess we had here. It was taken care of, that one was taken care of. Sure, there's crazy people out on the street. We can't go up and pick them all up and put them away, well, so we don't have to worry about them. They're gonna be here every day,
Well, the only reason
they
that
gotta
one was
come in
taken
here
care of
every
is
day.
Brian called ahead. We wouldn't have taken care of that one.
That's the judge's fault, I feel they should have, you got something going on in the court, you should have a sheriff deputy in there.
he was locked out of his own door, wasn't he?
Yeah, he didn't follow
Take
protocol
his
either.
fob with him.
I'm confident that we could do some things out of Pinecrest.
Oh, yeah,
This individual, if I heard it right, was a veteran
yes.
and was in the veteran, so that means that person's gonna come through the front door of the new facility once it's open. So I think we can do some things out there to secure
Well, there's
that
only one
building.
door that come through.
That's separate from what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
And hopefully that committee will meet and then,
Take care of it.
yeah. So, like Linda said, we're gonna revisit all these budgets. Just have to kind of throw around some numbers.
So maybe you'll have those numbers when we revisit yours again.
So for now, just hold.
I think we have to, unless I'm willing to support one position for the
I understand.
courthouse with the funding coming out of room and board.
I think, and then if you could have that conversation with Brian to see
On the second
how much,
Yeah.
how much into the second one
Might
he'd be able to do.
doable. You never know.
Sure.
And then the board can have discussion on that other position over in the jail, because you're paying for her out of,
But you were already
Room and board,
subtracting
too?
Sarah's.
Sarah's 70%'s coming out of,
Correct. Sarah's 70% comes out of room and board too.
But that's already calculated.
yeah, it is.
That is actually in the budget.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not in there. Okay.
So really that one there, Chris, is one that we'll have to take some discussion when we come back, but I think if we could get some kind of a consensus on the one, and then maybe talk to Brian on the other one, if we can get some funding there.
Well, the one sounds like it's pretty easily done, so, but the second one,
You know,
how creative, I guess.
The key, like he said, you wanna make sure that you're sustaining that because of the training. So
Well, that's up
very
to
well,
two.
the board's gonna have to take that issue up in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And to continue that funding, it may have to come out of different pots.
Or it'll go away.
I'm
Or
assuming.
go away, because I know those 5 collection, 8 downstairs, they were created with the assumption that if the money goes away, they go away.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Anything else from you,
Oh, thank you, Tony.
James?
No. Oh, you mentioned the job description too, if you'd forward it.
I can,
I haven't seen that.
yeah, I can forward it to you, absolutely. Yep.
Then it, James?
Realistically, the overall snapshot, capital is going down. Operating expenses went up, just like Tony said, the 0.5%. Really, the big increase is salary and benefits, and then the loss of revenues. So that's really where the 6.3% is coming from. Nothing.
And obviously, we're gonna have to visit the capital when we do the budgets, finalize them, because we've only looked at a few of the capital budgets.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. Other than that, that's all I have.
That's it for the day.
No,
Tony, you want to go over anything in his capital?
last but not least, we got Rory with maintenance.
Hey,
Tony didn't have anything and there was unusual anyway, so it's, I don't know if
I'm gonna keep this to about 2
you
hours.
put Rory at 11:25, the way he talks.
He told me he wanted to go at noon, but I told him we're probably going to be ahead of schedule. So
Talk fast.
Tim's not going to cover you, so say whatever.
You done yet?
Ask for the moon.
We'll keep her short.
Only speak.
Keep it below 2
Only
hours.
talk if asked a
He'll
question.
be back in touch.
You got me up there?
yep.
Yep.
Okay. I don't have a copy of that, but I guess what I wanted to point out for this year is looking at our revenues for our department, obviously with the Grin and Grow no longer being in Pinecrest. We did see a little over, almost a $18,000 reduction in our revenue from the loss of that daycare center. That's really about the only impact that we saw on our revenue. No changes were made in other areas with regards to that.
How did your salaries go down?
Pardon me?
Lost a guy and you got a new guy.
Yeah. So
Got retired.
yeah. So you're looking at just a transfer of one position to the next. The gentleman who retired was at the top of the
Oh, okay, so,
top of the
okay,
pay range.
Yeah.
okay.
The person that came in was at the bottom. On top of that, I believe that he's not accepting insurance.
Okay,
Yeah, just the combination.
so his overall operating went down about 7%.
Yeah, with our what I did with our expense budget, obviously James just talked with the FTE at a lower rate, but we did make several changes throughout our operating budget with regards to utilities. Was a big one, and I wanted to point out in both the jail, the jail and the courthouse, we did increase our utility budget to be more representative of what the actual was in 18 or 19. We did anticipate a further reduction in utilities with all of the improvements that we made in our facilities, particularly here at the courthouse with regards to the light and the new chiller system. So we did, with utilities, we did have about a 16% increase. We're factoring in on our expense the solar project over at the Pinecrest facility. Now, I didn't take it 100% because I wanted to be somewhat conservative, but our anticipation is to have the solar system up and running. I gave us until October, which I think is more than enough time to get that system up and running. So I did use approximately $34,000 from the electricity that we'd be saving at that facility to compensate for the increase in the others. So ultimately, that's how we came out at that 6%, 6.71% decrease in our expenses. So really not a whole other, no other big ticket items. We did remove a few smaller items, service charges, miscellaneous repairs. We did reduce the budget in that line item, and we felt we were able to do that because we are, having new equipment. We have new chillers. We have new boilers. So with this new equipment, those miscellaneous repairs, we're starting to see go down just a bit. So we brought those line items more in line with what we saw last year. So that allowed us also to increase or decrease it. So that's really about it for our operating budget. I don't know if you want to touch on capital today?
Yeah, we can go through capital. Keep in mind that a portion of this capital is going to be tied to the jail, so we can kind of go through that here as well if you'd
I
like.
have a question on that too, James. I see on the summary sheet, it says $45,000 of capital is coming from 60/40 funds, but in the capital equipment list, it says 50.
Yeah.
I might have changed it up on him before he.
That was, yeah, it was, there was a last second change that it's 50 is what it is.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Now, any of the jail capital, were you anticipating taking that out of the
60/40,
Yeah.
yeah. So just the two items for the jail.
There's
We
gonna be
have,
money in there to take out? I mean, it's a proper place for it, don't get me wrong, but if
Yeah.
we keep robbing that for the salaries,
Just
Yeah.
making sure.
you may come up to a point where there ain't gonna be any money in there, it'll have to come out of your budget.
yeah, I'm looking forward to getting the security committee. I mean, another thought, and I don't know if this has been considered, but with regards to adding an officer, I don't know if the board's looking at reducing the outsourced at all to help compensate some of that cost. So those are some questions I think.
Outsource where?
Well, the outsourced guards that we have, like if you have say you have a deputy that's going to be posted downstairs, would that deputy assume some of the roles that our outsourced companies currently doing, or is that deputy just going to be there to assist?
I doubt if he's gonna work the,
But that was a question that I
Yeah, there could
had.
be fewer people is kind of what you're getting at.
Yeah,
but if you have one out in the parking lot, that leaves you one on the machine.
yeah, it's not something I necessarily would in proposing. I'm just saying that is a potential that you could reduce, some of that cost.
Your cost of labor isn't huge on them.
No, you're looking at probably about 35 to 40,000.
There was like 3 down there today.
Yeah.
I know. So, so you could reduce maybe to 2 if you have, and still have one out in the parking lot with a deputy.
But again, I think we will get the security committee going, and we can kind of look at all those different scenarios, and then I was asked to actually put together, which is not reflected in my operating budget, but I did put together a number. If the board wanted to entertain the idea of putting an outsourced guard. When I say outsourced, it'd be like what we have here at the courthouse. But if the board wanted to place an outsourced guard over at the Pines Crest
It's that
facility,
discussion that you guys are gonna have. in
I think
your
that's another one that we can wrap up. Yeah.
Those requests should come to the board anyway, and then we send them down.
But I didn't include anything in my operating budget, so if that is, I will get that meeting lined up here very soon, so we can at least get that discussion going. But you can safely look at approximately $40,000 to $45,000.
You'd had those 2 people downstairs out there when to change the thing.
In this particular situation that we had the other day, as I was walking through that scenario in my mind and talking to the folks over at Pinecrest, it wasn't until the deputies arrived that person was apprehended and taken
The only
down.
thing them 2 could have done that day was the same thing one of the employees did, that's called 911. That's it.
Yeah, but I think there are, and I think there's plenty of Pinecrest folks that would agree that there are situations that somebody could help de-escalate a potential problem, and I think
Put
that's
their
where we're
hands
at.
on them already. I mean, they're
Yeah.
not a sworn deputy, so
Yeah.
if it's not a certified deputy, then
But like I said, I didn't put any of that in my budget.
Another
and
day.
It's something that the security committee can talk to and bring
I assume
suggestions.
we'll be doing that fairly soon.
Yeah. So as I go through the capital, the first line item there is a new ceiling in the kitchen. The reason for that is we currently have a hard ceiling in this area. There is a great deal of activity above that ceiling with regards to piping, water pipes, sewers, what have you. Over the last several years, we have had to cut out sections of that roof, that ceiling, to get to that piping. And then some of that piping is only getting older. So what we want to do is put a drop ceiling in that area with ceiling tile that's designed to handle moisture being in a kitchen area, and allowing us access above to those utilities that are located.
Where's the
up there.
funding coming on that one?
That's the part of the room and board. That's part of that $50,000.
So would you be removing the plaster ceiling before you do that, or?
It's
Not room and board.
No.
Could it be commissary?
Commissary.
There's
oh,
almost 600,000 in the commissary, and that'll come out of commissary, because that does directly benefit the
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
And you did tell me that, Tony. I wrote it down wrong.
almost everything coming into the jail, all the stuff that we talked about, will be paid for out of the commissary.
So,
That's because there ain't gonna be nothing left in the other
not
one.
the 6.
Yeah, so we feel that that is a great benefit in that area. And currently, right now, we do have several areas that are patched that we've had to break into the ceiling to get to the piping. So it'd be more sanitary. I have also listed a camera system for the courthouse. What we're looking at there is our current IP camera system. We would like that's here at the courthouse. We'd like to relocate that system over to the Pinecrest facility. We've got a very antiquated system over at Pinecrest, and allowing us to purchase a larger system to handle our additional cameras moving forward here at the courthouse, while also providing a much better system over at Pinecrest. One of the other situations that during this event that happened over there, we did have footage of the lobby, but it was a very small portion of that lobby that we were able to see.
Where else do you have cameras out there other than the lobby?
At Pinecrest, we've got a couple cameras in the former daycare area, which we're going to leave for the VA department for their new community center. We've got a camera in our mechanical room in the basement there at Pinecrest, and we also have one on the exterior doors.
Why in the mechanical room?
We have an exterior door that egress door, so we just want to monitor who's coming in and out of that door. And it's been there for years. Now we have a key fob on that, so we're kind of double monitoring that door. HVAC replacement for JCS. The units that are over there at JCS, we have 7 units. They're approximately 25 years old. They're a pulse type furnace system, and we've had some issues over the past couple of years, and it's getting to be more of a struggle finding parts for this particular type of furnace. Currently, all 7 of those furnaces are working. If you recall, a few years back, we did have to replace a unit on the roof. So this estimate does deduct for that particular unit. This is a line item that's been on our long-term plan for some time now, and it is truly preventative maintenance. It's like I said, the system's working. We're just trying to stay ahead of it. This would be our last facility to be updated with regards to the HVAC system. We're in the process of doing the jail right now. And Pinecrest is approximately 10 years old already. So.
And you said it was 24 years old?
24 years old, yeah. And we did have to, a few years back, we did have to replace the unit on the roof. So it's more of a end of the useful life and preventative maintenance. Sorry.
Another non-county building.
Sounds good.
The next one here is a flatbed truck. What we're looking at here, and I had some pictures for you, and I left the zip drive at home, but currently we have 3 F-250s with plows on them, and then we have 4 F-250s, but 3 with plows, and we have 1 with a sander in the back of it. The one with the sander in the back is literally deteriorating this truck bed. Over the last few years, we've taken measures to try to slow that down. We've have a liner in the bed. We have a stainless steel pan that we set the sander on to try to help slow that process down. And it's getting worse. And the truck's getting to a point where we're going to have no choice. We're going to have to do something different with this sander. So I reached out to a dealer, and what I'm looking at is a flatbed 1-ton pickup to be able to place the sander on an aluminum flatbed, and then that would also have a plow. So that truck would be utilized both for sanding and moving snow.
Did you buy a plow last year with the machine?
No,
You got 3 trucks and you got a little machine you bought for.
yeah, I was looking at that. Actually, that's already been, I'll tell you here, that's been a few years back already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause first
But you use it for snow, right?
Yeah, we do. And so we have, the 5 building mechanics and we have the 1 property assistant. So ideally, what this would allow us to do, because you'll see one of the other items on there are 2 additional snow plows. So this would allow us to put a snow plow on this new flatbed truck. It would also allow us to put a snow plow on the current F-250 that we have the sander in, giving us 2 more vehicles to be able to push snow. All of our vehicles are, they've got very low mileage on them, but they do get used very hard in the wintertime. So if, for an example, right now, if we had one of those vehicles go down, we would really be in a pickle. We would actually have to reach out for some outside help to be able to maintain our parking lot. Yeah, engineer keeps pretty busy when it's snowing out there. So
They aren't sitting around. Yeah.
So yeah, that's
We ever gonna be done with sidewalks out Pinecrest?
the sidewalk repairs. That was noted by the city of Waterloo. That'll take care of the issues that were noted, given to us this year. Pretty straightforward on that.
They're not, when they were cited a year ago, weren't they?
It was in the late summer when we got the notice, and they know that it has to go at budget time, so they're familiar with that. The next line item here, which is the inlet water supply, is what I called it. What it is it's actually, this is for the jail, and this is essentially our header system for the main water coming into this facility, into the jail facility. We do have reducers, we do have backflow preventers. Over the last, I would say, probably 5 years, we've had several cases where we've had to shut the jail down with regards to water and make repairs to this line.
Is that the one inside?
Yeah, and in fact, it was about I want to say it was about a $2,300, and I could be off a little bit on that, but I want to say the last one was about a $2,300 repair.
Did this fix it completely then?
This would basically replace that whole section with new piping, and hopefully buy us several more years of not having to get into that situation. So, oh, we just lost Dan. So again, this is just being proactive. To help us not get into that situation of having to shut the jail down. The human resources transaction service window, that came about, I know that HR had a situation here a while back that actually prompted a couple additional panic buttons throughout the building, and it also prompted the idea of putting in a window that somebody can approach the HR department and they can kind of assess the situation and let them in.
We're not really talking about a bulletproof, just more of a window that they can
Yeah,
do transaction.
how that looked. Okay.
But you know, James, you can look at her budget, it's usually pretty close, her budget. She might be able to find that in this year's budget yet, because that's not that large of an item and it's kind of important. You know what she's talking on her.
Yep.
Put a counter in there.
So that keeps people from entering the
Yeah.
HR office altogether?
Right.
And then if they need to for interview or conference, she can buzz in then. This way they can do their transaction, pass their forms through and everything.
Yeah, it'd be very similar to what you see in the attorney's collection area.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
It kind of stuck down there in the basement. I think that'll make a big difference. Yeah.
Oh, to be able to evacuate out of there.
I mean, this is a nice protective step, but it's not the end-all fix-all. Because they're still
No.
stuck in there.
What? Yeah, that's kind of.
We did let somebody in, we still have no way out.
It does kind of fall under the same, I guess, topic of security. But yeah, we had talked, this has been a few years back, that we had talked about with the HR department, if somebody does come into that area, they really are blocked. There's nowhere for them to go. And there's the board or the conference room down there that we could essentially put a door.
Which way is easier to go, that way or your way?
I believe the conference room, because that was added. That was a room that was added after the fact, after the courthouse was constructed. So I think they would have less obstruction to go that way. But we could, either way,
Well, one sounds like more an
cost-wise.
escape route, and the other's more of a preventative, letting people in.
Yeah, you're right. We did talk about that, and we're kind of in that same
I think
situation.
it's a good idea.
Yeah.
But that's why I thought if you had it in going your way, you could act both ways.
Yeah, because we are kind of in that same, particularly in our office where Abby and I sit. You know,
Unless you
I
got
really
somebody-
should have an egress window. Is kind of what I was thinking right there.
Unless you got somebody coming in both offices, so you run back and forth. Which way?
Well, does that become an issue for Abby, I mean, for your office too? I mean, there are people that come in.
Yeah, and based off of the incident that we had in HR, that prompted us to put a panic button in Abby's office.
That's a bad place down there.
Yeah.
Because we are really kind of in a corner.
Yeah.
I think the window thing and a door should go hand in hand, to be honest with you.
Yeah, can we get a cost estimate on that to include in this year's budget on the
Say that
door?
again?
Get a cost estimate on the door.
On the door, okay.
If you get that going to yours, it kind of take care of both departments. You agree?
Yeah, I'm just trying to process it through,
Yeah.
given where we're located. We'd have a door going into Debbie's office or your storage room.
Well, it'd be a emergency,
And there's a step
Yeah.
wall there now.
it'd be emergency door either way you look at it.
Yeah, I will definitely look at
That's a good
that.
idea.
I kind of like the egress window idea, but that just didn't go anywhere.
No, I mean, it's,
Egress window.
if you've got the,
You know, a little sunlight down there in the
Little
basement
sunlight
would never hurt.
I think, I mean, if you could, I'm open to window, I mean, you know the space better than,
It could
Then
let
we
somebody
did-
in easy from the outside.
I'm being a little facetious.
right?
Yeah.
This way,
all right.
you can bring Deb coffee.
I presented the idea of putting a tube skylight, but the clerk of court above me didn't like that idea.
Yeah.
So,
Is that the intention, Deb, to buzz your door then, if we put the window in? And how about you, Rory? Same intentions or no?
Or I assume anybody with a fob,
uh,
with a fob like we do other doors?
yeah, I think we definitely would want to fob that, but then treat it like, I'm trying to think of an example up here on Second. I believe maybe the auditors has the ability to buzz somebody in.
Yeah, so does the assessors.
Yeah.
Yep, they
Or
buzz
county
them too.
attorneys, yeah.
You get much foot traffic?
We actually get, believe it or not, the $5 tickets can, if you've got somebody that goes to court and they lose custody of their child and they come outside and they got a ticket on the window, we see a lot down there, actually. Abby, I've had to walk around the corner many times to de-escalate a situation.
Wait till we raise them to
I think-
$20. They
Yeah.
really will.
With the-
We really are kind of backed in a corner there, and it's
Basement's terrible, I think, for
yeah,
both of those
so
offices.
the panic button was a very good addition to that area.
We're still down there a ways.
Yeah.
So with the fob on the HR door, I think that would be greatly limited to who had that access, just in case, what if it is an employee that we gave fob access to that's having an issue? And so, as long as that's a pretty limited scope of who,
Yeah, they can.
who's programmed,
Whoever.
who's programmed into having.
And yeah, we have the ability to do that. Yeah, it could be department heads, or we can
That's-
tailor that however we
That's something
want.
you can do right now, really, that key
Yeah.
fob thing.
Yeah.
Would the door going into HR though really solve for your office and Abby? I mean, you'd still need to maneuver out into the hallway.
Not
to
so
get
much
into
for
your-
Abby and myself, but if there's a maintenance, if the staff's in the shop, yeah.
Right.
I keep a crescent wrench under my desk I could throw at them.
But you're not always there.
No. But yeah, that basement does pose some significant concerns with.
I think that's being proactive, so there's a
Yeah.
couple of good ideas I think you can utilize.
Yeah. So that really is about it for my capital. Compared to previous years, that's a pretty short list comparative.
So
I'm
your
pretty,
capital list really 50,000 less.
And I'm really happy with their operating budget, being able to. Now, I do feel like I am taking a bit of a risk by factoring in the solar, but it's going to be our #1 priority to get the solar up and running as soon as possible.
And when are you going to do the RFP, or when is that?
Our goal is to start getting bids in the spring, and I'm told that once the bids are accepted, the turnaround time is fairly quick. So I think
that
by
RFP hasn't been given to Pete yet, though, for
No,
approval or anything.
I think sooner than later.
Yeah.
Before they book up, rather than wait until spring, so.
Yeah, I've been keeping in contact with a couple of different vendors.
I think I'd get that RFP put out there and be done with it. Move on.
We definitely want as much, I mean, this project going before the next fiscal year, just in case there would be another attempt by the state legislature to have laws be less favorable to solar.
Well, that tax incentive portion, that's always an issue. But yeah, that's our goal. Yeah, and we've had several companies reach out to us since we've started talking about solar. So we've got quite a list to send that out to, which is good.
Now, your capital's like 32% reduced from last year, your capital list?
Yeah, it's
significant.
And we have several projects in the work yet for this year. We're working on the large one over at the jail with the boiler. I think you might have heard the carpet being delivered up here today. In the VA, we're pretty proud of that, but we'll get a security committee going and talk about some different options that we can look at for possibly making that more secure. Any questions for me?
No, I think it just reflects the years of investment in taking care of our facilities that we're here. I mean, not to, because those are folks across the hall, but we've got a courthouse that's the same age roughly, and it's night and day if you look at the condition of these buildings, these facilities.
Put a lot of money into them over the years. Same thing with our equipment.
Yeah, we
replaced a lot of equipment, bought a lot of new equipment.
We got a great staff, and every one of our staff members, they take a great deal of pride in what they do, and I think that's a reflection.
The problem is you got a jail over there that runs 24/7.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of wear and tear over there.
It does.
All right, any further questions for Rory?
Thank you, Rory.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, James?
That's all I had for the budget, just kind of some follow-up pieces here. I will work with Tony in getting that, the Bachelor of Social Work in his budget, and then we'll kind of discuss after the security meeting what we kind of want to do with the positions, but kind of sounds like at least one position. So we'll work together on that. I'll get that final budget just to kind of let you guys know exactly where we're at. I'll get that over to you, and then other than that, I will look in the HR budget to see if we can do that. Do the window in this fiscal year.
So on Thursday, we've got health and insurance.
Health and IT.
Health and IT.
Yep. And then we are done
so
with
we have some more
presentations.
agencies too. We have.
Yes. Yep. We have North Star, UNI Food Produce, and the FFA board, and then we are done with board agencies.
All right. Do we want to talk about salaries also on Thursday?
I can. I mean, we can definitely talk about salaries on Thursday. We can.
I can get presentations. We probably should try to make some use of that time on Thursday. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
I know it's going to be a little longer on Thursday, just because those are two big departments with, big asks and changes and that kind of thing. So, I can get out all the information to you for salaries, so we can make that make that decision as well. So,
maybe we should talk too. We talked about Grundy Road and some of those things in the this in general, not decisions.
We got to go over capital budgets yet too.
Yep. And I sent out the total list of capital, so everybody should have that.
That should be everybody's, yeah.
Yep.
Got everybody's in there. Gotcha.
So maybe
we can start
discuss salaries on Thursday, and then the agencies are coming in health department, and what was the in IT, and then maybe Tuesday we would have the discussion about all the capital stuff, and then discussion about bonding versus.
When you're talking salaries, who are you talking about?
Just the non-bargaining folks that we haven't
And you're
discussed.
looking at something greater than what we awarded elected officials, I'm assuming.
No, I'm just looking at just talking about it Thursday. I don't know what I'm looking at.
Just what the,
Yeah,
number.
and I can get you all the, I mean,
You got scenarios laid out already?
I do, yeah.
All right, good.
Yep.
2, 2.5, 3.
Yeah, I think it's 2.5, 2.75, and 3.
We went, what, 275 for elected?
Yep.
Correct.
Debbie's gone Monday and Tuesday. So,
Yeah.
anything we get.
Did everybody get a copy of what I requested on the salaries over the last 3 or 4 years?
Yeah,
Everybody got it?
on the non-bargaining, or those equity, yeah, we saw that, yeah. Equity adjustments, yeah. Just, let me say, just to be ready, I guess, for us, because I might as well make use of our time.
Yeah.
Did we, I didn't know if we said we were putting that position into the budget yet. I thought we were gonna talk about funding.
No, I think.
Yeah.
He said he was putting it in. I didn't hear that.
I'm sorry, whoops.
Well, I think not to be decided, it's like to be determined at some
Yeah,
time
and
on
the
our
funding,
discussion.
the other two is the one's in limbo, the other half of the courthouse, but the one over there, I didn't hear anybody say putting it in the budget.
Right. I mean, realistically, what we're going to be looking at is if we get everybody's requests in, and I mean, if we look at everybody's absolute max asks, and if everybody gets exactly what they want, we will then have our max levy rate.
Yeah.
At that point, we can then publish, and we can hold a public hearing on that max levy, and that is going to be the first.
He's talking about that new one, though.
Very
that new
first.
one.
Yeah, I know, but that's not the way to do a budget. We should go through it and find out what our budget is.
Correct.
I understand what the
Yep.
max levy is, and I think we've done that in the past anyway. But if you're going to, and I'm talking about, I know the new method that we have to go through, but
Yep.
are you talking about taking the total amount right now that all the departments submitted?
Yeah, and get an absolute max, yes. Because once you publish your first
Understand
budget,
that.
you cannot go over that.
I understand
So
that.
if there's anything that comes up, if you want to cut here or give this department, I mean, if we have everybody's asks in, we have our max. Clearly that's not going to be what we're going to decide on, but that's.
But we can go over it 6 months from now.
We can what? We can amend it, you mean?
You can't
If you
tax
certify
more
it.
6 months from now. I know exactly, Grant. I said we could go over that budget 6 months from now.
No, not without an amendment.
Can't wait till January.
With an amendment.
That's what I meant, we can't do it without an amendment.
That sounds like Glenn, James.
Perfect.
All right. Do we have any further discussion on the budget today? All right. Any reports or information from the board?
Oh, I guess just Jerry Clyde's family, I guess, extending
Yeah.
our condolences to his family for his death on
And
Sunday.
Dana's gonna send something off on behalf of the county and the board. And,
That's-
it's too bad, yeah.
Yep. Other than that, no.
All right. Anybody else today?
I hope your new location works out too.
I appreciate it. I'm
Yeah.
very hopeful for this.
Right downtown too, where
Really
Very
cool.
close.
should be
Yeah.
pretty good, so.
Good neighborhood to be in.
Yeah, it is.
Is that just for this year? I mean, just.
Yeah,
to
that's
get
just for
through
this
to
year,
find
yeah.
something else.
Now the building he said's up for sale.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I don't think we can get that for long term. It's the building's for sale. The whole thing.
So.
Right.
I
think they've got a buyer.
Make a condo out of that.
Right.
Do everything else.
Right. All right.